Hello, everybody. It is I, the Great Clement. Happy Halloween to everyone watching. As always, I'm joined by my co-host. Say hello.
I'm a ghost. You have been haunted by the spirit of Caro. Ooh. Oh.
I'm calling the Ghostbusters as we speak.
No, I already took the Ghostbusters down.
Son of a bitch. But yeah, folks, we're back with C-Squared number 14. We have a lot of things to talk about because October was a very, very busy month in terms of game releases, in terms of what we were playing, and oh my god. But first, I just want to address one thing about last C-Squared episode. My audio was not that great because I've had a lot of audio issues ever since Windows updated my laptop, okay? So, for some reason, with one of Windows' updates, they disabled the system I had going for, a year or so, the thing I've been doing since, the Tekken video, and all of the additional effects, these special effects, will just, mute the audio and make it super, super quiet ever since that update, which meant that the program I was using was now unusable. So I now have to rely on OBS and all these other programs that I haven't been experimenting with before, and it made my microphone sound more muffled and more muted and more not as good as it used to be, and I've been trying to get back to my Pac-Man World repack standard of quality, because I thought that video was the best my audio has ever sounded, and I'm trying to get back to that element. I'm trying to get back to that standard. But man, it's tough. I bought the Yeti X USB microphone. I bought a Shure MV7 microphone. I've been experimenting with all kinds of compressors and noise gates, and I keep fiddling with the gain levels and trying to put things in the very specific box. And it's been a whole ordeal. And right now, this is the best my audio can sound currently. And I think I'm going to be buying some foam to put it in my room to cancel out noise throughout this boxy wooden room. So I apologize if my audio is not up to the standards it used to be. I apologize if this audio is not crystal clear and not good enough. I am really trying to figure it out. I want my videos to sound like every other YouTuber. I'm going to have to start consulting other content creators to figure out what the hell I'm doing wrong. But yeah, it's been a whole ordeal, and I've been spending weeks trying to figure it out. I've been watching tutorial videos on how to make professional audio, and a lot of them are not very helpful, because sometimes they'll say, oh, you should configure the settings until it works for you, which is the most useless piece of advice when I'm literally trying to figure out how all of this stuff works.
Well, you know more than I do, because everything that you just said completely flew over my head. On my end, it's been a pretty busy month for me. Apologies if my voice sounds a little off. I thought I sounded fine when I came on here, but if I sound a little off, coming off a bit of a sinus issue, which is that time of year. But I'm actually getting much better from that. So just letting y'all know. I hate sinuses. I get them from my mother.
You know who would help with those sinuses?
Affordable healthcare?
Yes, and a specialized doctor. One certain doctor that took you by surprise earlier this month. One Dr. Fetus, the main villain of Super Meat Boy.
Yes.
So you visited me in my hometown earlier this month, and we spent a week together, and we played Metal Gear Rising, and we'll talk about that later. But I was showing you some of the games on my PlayStation 5 that I had downloaded, and I bought Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine, which is a sort of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine parody kind of wacky reimagining, only with the Super Meat Boy franchise. And I got it because it was $10. This is a very cheap game on PlayStation Network and Switch and everything else. And it's really, really fun, but I was surprised how taken by it you were. And then we started playing that the whole entire week,
Yeah, it started a thing where I was like, okay, I guess I'll play the first level and see what it's like. But then I really vibed with Well, it's Puyo Puyo, it's my favorite puzzle game, but it's Puyo Puyo with Super Meat Boy mechanics, which makes it infinitely harder and more fascinating. So I was like, oh shit, this is hard, and I can like immediately die to certain obstacles while trying to chain and trying to like eliminate enough pieces to get to the next level. And so that was like a very clear, addicting formula, and I just kind of stuck through it, and we ended up beating the whole game in like a few days.
Yeah. Again, it's basically Puyo Puyo. Like, the formula, the actual game design is very Puyo Puyo. You know, they break it apart in 4 pieces. You can do chain combos. I mean, if you've played Puyo Puyo, you know what to expect with this. The only difference is there are hazards now. So, like, there'll be buzzsaws that are spinning around, and if you hit them, you die, and then you have to reset and go back to a checkpoint or back to the start of the puzzle in order to try it again. And there's lasers, there's ghosts, very happy ghosts who don't look like they're hurting anybody. Weird tick bug monsters that chase after you, fireballs that float around. You know, there's all kinds of hazards that if you run into it as the piece that is moving around, that counts as a death. But if it runs into all of the pieces that have been placed, that doesn't count as a death. It just destroys them and you keep playing regardless.
Yeah, it pretty much, as long as your active piece doesn't touch any of these obstacles, you're fine.
And it's like every single stage is broken up into these different phases. So like one phase in the very first level, it's just a normal board of Puyo Puyo. There are no hazards, you're fine. But when you clear one chain of whatever, I think Dr. Fetus, the whole point of the game is he's trying to make a clone of Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
So that he can torture and kill Super Meat Boy constantly as often as he wants.
Yep. That is basically the whole premise.
When you clear out 4 of these bastardized weirdo clones, that's when a buzzsaw gets introduced. And then you're all of a sudden in phase 2. And the good thing about this game is that even though it is hard and even though it is very difficult, it has tons of checkpoints.
Yes.
Like, every time you enter a new phase, you are allowed to start from the beginning of that phase when you die. So it can be like a board that's 5 phases long, 6 phases long, but at least if you're at the last phase and you die in it, you just start from the last phase. You don't have to start the whole thing all over again, which, thank God.
Like, it's a perfect amount of challenge where, like, it's challenging enough, and it gets really hard. Like, trust me, this game gets really hard because, of course, it's Super Meat Boy. But it never feels unfair, and you are given those checkpoints. So there's a nice balance of, like, it's challenging but fair, which is something I wish a lot more games would take note of, but we'll get into that later. So
it's very relevant to this video.
Yes, it is. So for me, it was just really fun in that way because, like, it was just a really nice twist on the Puyo Puyo formula. And for me, it worked. It was such a good time with that. And I always felt really good when clearing a phase or challenge. It was like, oh, I got through that. Or those really close calls that we had. Where, like, I'd be so close to dying, but then I'm just, like, an inch away, and then I avoid the obstacle and end up beating it.
We clenched a lot. We were like, oh!
Yes.
Oh, she just dodged it. Oh, Jesus Christ, we made it. Woo! I actually also really like the soundtrack as well.
Yes.
I remember we were jamming out to the music a lot as the game was going on, which I always felt bad about Super Meat Boy because when the game came out initially for the Xbox 360 and PC, that soundtrack's amazing. I love the original Meat Boy soundtrack, but when the game was re-released to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch and Wii U, and I don't know if it was Wii U, but when it was re-released later in like 2016 or something,
Mm-hmm.
I guess there was issues between the developer and the composer, and so they had to get an entirely new soundtrack into Super Meat Boy. So if you download Super Meat Boy on Switch today, it's not going to have the original soundtrack that it did on the Xbox 360, which, in my opinion, is the far superior, far better soundtrack. It was very distracting when Super Meat Boy was on PlayStation Plus. I got it for free. It was a free game on PS Plus, and I was like, oh, sweet. I love this game. And then I booted up, and the forest level sounded different, and then the hospital sounded different. And I was just like, oh, it's still a good game. It's still great, but man, that original soundtrack is just better. I don't know. There's something missing when you play it today, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack of Dr. Fetus was fantastic. Like, not having anything to compare it to and just being its own thing. I actually downloaded a few of the music from the internet, and now I have some Dr. Fetus music on here, because, yeah, that stuff is funky. Funky good stuff.
And that's what you need for, like, a kind of game like this, because you know that the player is gonna, like, play this over and over and over and over again, especially when you've made it intentionally hard enough that you expect the player to die several times. So you need, like, nice hooks and melodies in order to, like, you know, have the player not be bothered by the songs at all.
Yeah. And this game has, like, that A+ feature, like the Meat Boy games. So, like, the quicker you do the puzzles, eventually you'll clear the goal and be the A+, and then you'll get your platinum trophy if you can A+ every single level in the game.
Yeah, when I ended up coming back home from the trip, I ended up downloading a Fetus on my PS5, and I definitely have gotten more A+ levels than I did playing through the first time, and I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go.
Hell yeah. But Dr. Fetus, I thought this was a fantastic Puyo Puyo knockoff. It was a fantastic Puyo Puyo game. And yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Yes, I recommend this if you are a Puyo Puyo fan looking for something different. Definitely get this game. Like, it is a nice twist on Puyo Puyo. And again, like we said before, the challenge level is difficult, but I think it's fair enough given the amount of checkpoints that you get. And yeah, it was on sale like for $7 or $8 when I got it on the PlayStation Store. It might still be the case, so I'm not sure. So maybe check that now.
Yeah, this game's not expensive at all. Even when it's not on sale, it's usually just $10. So, you know, I spend more than that on McDonald's, okay?
Oh my god.
It's a cheap game. I think everyone should give it a shot.
Yes.
What else did we play, Caro? A long-awaited game that everyone was waiting for you to play.
Yes. So, finally, I told y'all this was going to happen several months ago, but I said that the next time we'd meet up, we'd play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and that is exactly what we did, and oh boy, I definitely can see why y'all were hyping this up. This was an amazing experience. It was so wacky from beginning to end, and I'm really glad that we had the chance to, like, play this. Awesome stuff.
This is my favorite Platinum Games game. Like, I love Bayonetta. I think Bayonetta's fantastic, but I have always come back to this one and replayed it multiple times, and it's so short that it's a very easy game to replay. But it's just, the soundtrack is fucking glorious.
Yes. Oh my god, the songs were amazing.
Metal Gear is usually just got lots of atmospheric military type music, and it's great stuff, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have the butt rock anthems of what's happening in Metal Gear Rising, where you're just cutting up a Metal Gear and then rules of nature.
And if there's anything I love in my video games, it is corny rock music. Well, I'm not gonna even say corny. It was amazing rock. Like, the rock music was awesome here.
Yeah.
But it's rock music and ridiculous video games. And that's such a really nice combo here. And I think in a previous episode, we were talking about Metal Gear Solid 4. And I was talking about, oh my gosh, Raiden has such an amazing, like, action scenes in this game. Because he's, like, doing this and doing flips and, like, having all these wild moves and stuff. And I guess this was, like, a nice sneak peek at what Metal Gear Rising would eventually become. So, like, I'm glad to see that, like, that aspect of, like, what they were working on with Raiden already in the fourth game carried over into Revengeance.
Oh, absolutely. I remember thinking, like, when we were playing MGS4, your reaction to him fighting Vamp was so like, oh, she's gonna love Rising. She's gonna love Rising, because it's basically that cutscene, but for the whole fucking game.
Yes.
Like, this guy is literally picking up Metal Gears with his arms, throwing them into the air, running up their arms, and cutting them into pieces until he eventually cuts them in half. You know? I don't know if Gray Fox could do that in the original Metal Gear, but whatever.
No. Raiden's folding Gray Fox. He is folding MGS1 Gray Fox, I'm sorry.
Oh shit. Oh shit. It does have a DLC costume of Gray Fox. So if you want to cosplay as Gray Fox when you're going through Metal Gear Rising, you can do that. Because, you know, it's Metal Gear. There's got to be a cyber ninja at some point. Yeah, this game is just so fucking fun. And I also love that, like, it's just easy enough for a casual audience to really get into it because of the spine ripping mechanic.
Yeah.
Like, every time you take on an enemy, everyone you fight are cyborgs. You don't fight a single human in this that's just a normal person. You're always fighting cyborgs who have some kind of battery, some kind of electro spine, so that, like, when you beat them up enough, their body turns blue. And when their body is blue, that means you can start cutting them into pieces. And this is like a fun tech demo of sorts, because you can literally cut cars in half, you can cut trees in half, you can cut bridges apart. Like, at the very start of this beach level, you can cut a bridge and just make it crumble and fall apart, and then you'll have to wall ride up the area. Like, you can cut up an entire stairway just because you can.
Yes. I remember I was like, cut up that certain obstacle, and he just does it. I'm like, oh my god, you cut off that whole pedestrian bridge! Just because you can. And this is like maybe 20 minutes into the game.
So, like, a guard or an enemy turns blue, and that means you can cut them into pieces now. Your blade can rip them to shreds. And when you go into, like, aiming mode, the Zandatsu mode, there's a little checkbox that is where their spine is located, their electrolyte spine. So, like, you cut that, and then you can push circle to rip out their spine, absorb it, and then all of your health and energy comes back so that you're just fully rejuvenated. It's like an elixir in Final Fantasy. And every enemy has one of these things. So when you're low on health, the strategy is to rip out somebody's spine so you can get back to normal and just continue the fight like it's nobody's business. Yeah. It's a fantastic gameplay loop.
The other thing I was going to mention with that, because of its accessibility, is that, like, it's a shorter story. I kind of was thrown off by the fact that it was, like, shorter. Because I was like, oh, wait, really? We're at the end already? Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
I was expecting, like, a little bit more, but I guess, like, from a casual's perspective, like, I think it just makes the game a little bit more easier to chew through.
I mean, it's interesting because I'm doing a video on Final Fantasy 16 right now. And one of the topics I'm going to be mentioning about that game is that it has, like, Devil May Cry type gameplay, but with an RPG story, which is so different from your Devil May Cries, your Bayonettas, your Metal Gear Risings, where the cutscenes and the story are short enough that you could probably blow through these games in like 4 to 6 hours. And Final Fantasy 16 is a 40-hour game with lots of dialogue. So it's like, you know, some people may find it off-putting that, like, the gameplay is so fast and frenetic and intense and awesome, and then you're watching like a 10-minute cutscene of people talking. Whereas Metal Gear Rising is not trying to be as deep or as long as the other Metal Gear games. Like in Metal Gear, you'd go into a room and Snake and Meryl would be talking for 10 minutes in the bathroom. You know, just having a long-winded conversation, monologues about nuclear deterrence and all this other stuff.
Or like in Metal Gear Solid 4, where, like, you can... It's not unusual to have, like, 20-minute cutscenes before and after a chapter.
Yeah. Like, everyone always jokes, Metal Gear Solid 4 is practically a movie. The ratio of gameplay to cutscenes is very much in favor of cutscenes with MGS4. But I guess Platinum Games, they were thinking like, well, you know, this is a spinoff. This isn't like some main important moment in the Metal Gear franchise. We're just going to make the cutscenes short and simple, and we're just going to let you go through it. I will say, though, that this game does have the codec system still. And if you're looking for lots and lots of content, just pause the game every now and then and talk to all of your codec people. Talk to Ductor and Courtney and Boris, and talk to these people, because they will have mountains of dialogue regarding the levels, the situations you're in, the bosses and enemies you're fighting. There's one cameo at the end that I really enjoyed, because they start talking about past characters from the other games. And it's just fun to, like, you can be in the fight with the final boss, and there's a codec. You can talk to all of your teammates, and they'll have long conversations about what exactly you're doing. So, lots of replayability there.
Absolutely.
Raiden is sort of like Mega Man, where he'll pick up other weapons as well. Like, when you defeat Mistral, the first boss, you get her pole arm, and then all of a sudden you have this bow staff that you're spinning around on the ground with and hitting people multiple times. Like, you can get the size from that one guy, Monsoon. You can get the big fuck-off scissor blades from Sundowner. I mean, I love that there's tons of tools to experiment with. I love that you can still hide in a cardboard box
and
sneak up on certain guards. My favorite thing in the final level is that you're in this big hangar and there's guards patrolling everywhere. And, it's a Metal Gear game. So I'm just like, well, I'll just put on the cardboard box and sneak by all of them. So sometimes if you don't want to fight everybody, you can just hide inside of a box, hide inside of a drum, and sneak by when you know nobody's looking.
The final boss of this game is probably the best final boss sequence I've seen in a game in quite some time, and actually one of my favorites. Like, that is absolutely insane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, everyone always remembers the final boss. The final boss, Senator Armstrong, is fucking incredible.
Senator Armstrong is wild.
It is a spin-off Metal Gear game, but it does have that crazy political commentary that a lot of these Metal Gear games have. And this one was very prophetic because it came out in like 2013,
yes,
2012, 2013, this game. And there are certain things, catchphrases from the Senator Armstrong that feels very Trump-esque of like 2016. There is literally a moment where he's yelling at you about stuff, and then he goes, "We're gonna make America great again!"
After Metal Gear Solid 2 and this game, I'm convinced that Hideo Kojima is like a prophet from the future who just happened to take on the body of like someone in the present day. Because there's no way that he calls this shit twice. Because it's just so prophetic.
I really hope Death Stranding isn't a sign of things to come.
It might as well be if these two games are anything to go by. Oh my god.
I mean, you can make the argument it almost was, because, like, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And, like, Death Stranding is about, like, a postman, like a guy who delivers things in a dead, isolated world where everyone's hiding inside of a bunker. So maybe he did call COVID. Maybe he did realize that COVID was going to happen. We have to find out if Hideo Kojima has traveled from the future. That's what we gotta do.
Yes, because I'm convinced this boy's a time traveler at this point. He makes these games to warn us.
Death Stranding 2 is going to warn us about something major, and we gotta pay attention to it, goddammit.
I'm gonna scrub the trailer for clues.
I enjoy the length of Metal Gear Rising, because, like, I think with a game like that, the shorter the better. It makes the replayability fantastic, where, like, yeah, you can beat through it really quickly, but that's, like, one difficulty. Then you can bump up to hard mode or very hard mode and try out the new game plus weapons and skills that you have and try it out in a whole new way. Like, it's a game that I've replayed at least 7 times. Like, I've gone through that game a whole bunch, which I can't even say about Bayonetta or a lot of Devil May Cry titles. Like, this is genuinely one of my favorite action games that's ever existed. And it's already good that I'm a big Metal Gear fan to begin with, but even if I wasn't a Metal Gear fan, I just think it stands out. It's so exceptional and one of the high points of Platinum Games' library. This is the thing you point to go like, see, Platinum Games make awesome shit. You gotta check out their library.
Your memes end here, Platinum.
Oh, yeah. Your memes end here.
Adios, amigos.
But anyway, these games are not the main event. These are not the main showcase of October, because we've had a big influx of main franchise stuff dropping. We got Mario, we got Sonic, we got Spider-Man. It is a busy month for gaming, and well, we might as well start with the games that arrived first. We may as well start with good old Sonic the Hedgehog. Good old Blue Boy.
Good old Sonic.
What's he been up to?
Come over here. I just want to talk. Just come over here. Come right here. Sit right there. Get all cozy.
Sonic released not only Sonic Superstars, but they also released an expansion to Sonic Frontiers, a game we've covered on C-Squared before, and I gushed about that game. I loved Sonic Frontiers. I still love Sonic Frontiers. I think the main campaign of that title is fantastic. I think it's a great step in the right direction. It's Sonic like you've never experienced Sonic before, because they finally decided to take the character open world and have you running around these big open fields, which is something that makes Sonic feel so different and yet so fun and fantastic and addictive. And I loved Frontiers. I enjoyed that game quite a bit. To put it in my top 10 favorite Sonic games of all time, that's a high recommendation.
I was absolutely the same. I loved Frontiers when it came out. I also put it in my top 10. The music is absolutely incredible. I love the directions they took Sonic in. Some of the gameplay issues are kind of like wonky, but aside from that, I thought they generally did a really good job, and the stage, like the ring stages were amazing, and I love the character building and story development in that game because it was something that I had not seen from Sonic in a really long time. Like, I know that personally I am a little bit more forgiving of the writing in like Colors and Lost World, but I did agree with some critics of that era that Sonic was missing some sort of like in-depth character building, and I thought that was done amazingly with each character in Frontiers, especially with Eggman, because I felt like his character hadn't been explored in depth as much as it was like in Sonic Adventure 2. So to see him go through the things that he does go through in Frontiers was just really awesome. And like, it was kind of poignant at the end. Like, I thought like what they did with his character at the end was pretty like, oh.
Yeah. Aw. Now they've dropped an update. They've dropped a new campaign, something that is to replace the final act of the game with a new act that actually lets us play as Tails and Knuckles and Amy. And it has some extra stuff for Sonic, which is a little more debatable. I guess I'll start with the good.
Yes, we'll
right
start
off
with the
the bat.
Let's start off good.
Because I did have fun with the other characters. I thought playing as Knuckles, Tails, and Amy was the highlight of that update, even if they didn't have a lot to do. They had like platforming puzzles that they could do, but they didn't really have any unique boss fights or anything made for them. No unique levels. They couldn't participate in the cyberspace stages, unfortunately.
I was kind of bummed about that. Like, I figured that, like, if you were gonna put Tails, Knuckles, and Amy in the game, that you would have an option to switch between them in, like, the cyberspace levels. So I was kind of sad that, like, that wasn't a thing. I was like, oh, really?
Especially since they all get to be fast and they all get to have a spin dash, that, like, it doesn't feel like it would be that crazy if you just gave them a homing attack in the cyberspace levels to just do everything that Sonic is capable of. I mean, it feels like they should be able to do it. They can glide, they can double jump, they can fly. I mean, why not? Just let them play around in the cyberspace levels. It's not like it's going to hurt anything.
Yeah, but aside from that, like you said, the characters were really fun to play as. Like, it was just, again, it's just so nice to have playable Tails and Amy and Knuckles after so long, because the last time they were playable was, like, 06. So having them in my hands was awesome, and I think, like, they each have unique, like, things about their character. So, like, for Tails, if you level him up enough, you get the Cyclone, and you can fly it around the stage.
Oh my god.
Awesome, because you can definitely choose some challenges in that way. That's something I definitely did.
Oh yeah. And I love how you can kind of spawn it whenever you want, because it's like, it relies upon the energy that you store up, like this kind of boost energy that Sonic had. And every character can Psyloop, which means that they can do that infinity symbol Psyloop that actually gives them infinite boost for as long as they want.
Yes.
And if you do that with Tails and then you take advantage of the Cyclone, you can fly for ages, go wherever you want to go as high as you want to go. And so it makes a lot of the platforming challenges that were made for him kind of superfluous, because, well, I can just go over it, or I can just go under it, or I can just go exactly where the goal is, exactly where the destination is. And because I have unlimited energy, and because this Cyclone can go so freaking far, so freaking fast, that I can just break the game entirely.
Yes.
But I love that, because that's how I felt about Sonic Adventure 1 Tails, was that there was a lot of things I wasn't taking advantage of with Tails in those levels, but that was kind of the point of his mode, was to just fly over everything and see how much you could skip and how much you could bypass to get to the goal. So I thought that was pretty satisfying.
Yeah, and Amy has like her tarot cards again, and like you can play around a bit with her. And I was hoping for like more of the Piku Piku Hammer. I was kind of sad that we didn't get that, save for like one or two moves. So a lot of her moveset in the DLC is based around her tarot cards. And clearly there's like a lot of love there, because the tarot cards are such dated like throwback.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are on the up about your Sonic lore. But I guess for me, like, the hammer is such an iconic piece of Amy that I was kind of surprised that it wasn't in a lot of her moves.
Yeah, she uses it as like a motorbike in this game, which is kind of strange. It almost looks like she's riding a witch broom.
That's what I took it as. Like, she has the tarot cards and like she's riding it like a witch broom. I guess they wanted to give her like a spooky, I don't know, aesthetic.
Happy Halloween.
I suppose.
Yeah, she's probably the character I'd had the least amount of fun with, just because of the traversal of Knuckles and Tails. Like, double jump is fine. I think it's perfectly fine for the challenges she was doing, but yeah, she just felt like Sonic with not as good combat as Sonic and a double jump. That was basically it.
How did you feel about Knuckles' glide?
I didn't like the startup of the glide.
Yeah.
For some reason, in every other game, the adventure games, 06 even, like, you push the button and he just glides, and that's it. That's all it should be, because that's how it is in the 2D games, that's how it is in the other 3D games. But this time, they make Knuckles, like, rise up a little bit, and then he gets into position, and then he goes forward, which I think is a little too slow, and sometimes it can mess with the camera and make it just a little awkward and clunky and get you really stiff. It makes you really locked into the direction that you're going. I found his gliding didn't have enough maneuverability. Like, he goes very straight, and you can kind of tilt him a little bit, but you don't tilt him nearly enough like you'd want to. And unfortunately, it's been done better in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. We know how gliding can work in 3D with those games, and I think that those games handle it so much better than Frontiers does.
For sure. I felt overall that the glide was a pretty bit clunky on my end. Because, like, I started it, like, I remember when he immediately switched from, like, Amy to Knuckles, so I'm like, cool, I'm playing as Knuckles, let me see how his glide feels. I'm like, this is a little different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was just never able to, like, I don't know, fully get it or master it. It just didn't make too much sense to me. Just because I'd been used to the way, like you said, that glides had been used in past games. So hopefully this is something that Sonic Team refines for Knuckles in the next game. Otherwise I'm just gonna be like, don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one thing you could say is that the developers are listening to fan feedback, for better and worse.
They are listening to concise fan feedback, and we'll get into this later. I just want to get that out there now. Go on.
And so I assume when everyone talks about the gliding issues and even the climbing issues, because I think it's a little weird when, like, I accidentally fall off the island and I'm, like, heading for the ocean, and Knuckles can't just, like, scale the rocks that the island is, you know? He can't just, like, I can't just glide into the island itself in order to climb out and not fall to my death. You can only climb red surfaces. Like, there are all these platforms are color-coded. So you have, like, pink platforms and yellow platforms and red platforms, and they are all specifically to say, like, okay, this is an Amy section, this is a Tails section, this is a Knuckles section. You see red objects everywhere, and Knuckles can climb those just fine. But if you see, like, a regular tower or a regular anything, Knuckles can't climb that. So he can only climb red surfaces, which is very... It's not natural to how you remember Knuckles playing in every other game.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I had fun climbing. I love that when you hold the right trigger button, Knuckles climbs super, super fast, and there's just something about the way he maneuvers on walls that I think is the best it's ever been. He just needs the gliding to be better. Climbing is fine. But gliding needs some work. And, yeah, I love when you get, like, your max skills, and then eventually the glide becomes infinite, where he doesn't lower at all. If you have max rings, he'll just stay in the same direction. He won't go down at all. And I could climb, like, the highest tower and go and glide with Knuckles, and just the whole of the island will be right underneath you. And it's such a cool sight to be flying that high up and to just drop wherever you want Knuckles to go. That's a highlight for me.
For sure. Reminds me of, like, Meteor Herd in Sonic Adventure 2. Where you, like, climb up to the highest point of Meteor Herd, and then you can just go all the way down.
Just drill all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
That's one of the most dynamic, one of the most fucking open levels ever. I love that stage.
Oh yeah, Meteor Herd's one of my favorites too.
I don't like that their combat kind of sucks. Like, their combat doesn't suck. It's just that the enemies they're taking on are too fucking hard.
It's hard to work around the enemies when you can only level up or even power up those 3 characters so much. Like, even when I felt like I had leveled Amy, Knuckles, or Tails enough to take on a certain, like, boss on the map, that it still felt like such a slog to, like, take him down, if at all.
It's like Sonic's combat is clearly better than the other 3's. Yes. That, like, if I saw an enemy, if I saw a Guardian as Knuckles, Amy, or Tails, I would just go, well, I'm not going to fight it because it's a waste of time. You can find cogwheels just by digging them up or side-looping those blue energy swirls. So I never needed to fight a Guardian. And fuck that. The difficulty's way too high on these motherfuckers.
I felt like if the level of the Guardians was that of the main campaign, it'd be much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's honestly something I was expecting from this DLC, to retain the level of the Guardians from the original game, if not make them a little bit more difficult, but not to the extent of the difficulty of the Guardians in the DLC.
It's also annoying that, like, we have to unlock all of their basic skills when you first start up. Like, I don't know why we have to unlock the side loop when Sonic didn't. Sonic didn't have to do that in the main campaign of the original game, so why do Knuckles, Tails, and Amy have to unlock the side loop? And sure, you could argue, oh, it's quick. Just find one of those color-coded Coco, and then you get it. But it's like, why do I have to do it at all?
Unlock it, though, if Sonic still has it?
I know. Like, you'll come up to blue swirls of energy, but I can't actually interact with it as Amy because I have to unlock the side loop. And it's like, well, why do I have to do that? I should just have it from the get-go. The difficulty is so inconsistent going from these characters to Sonic, because it's like, the platforming challenges of Amy, Tails, and Knuckles are perfectly fine. That, to me, is like the standard difficulty that the main game was, and I actually had a lot of fun trying to find all of the Cocos and all of the switches to expand the map, and all of the things that were related to Amy, Tails, and Knuckles' challenges. I was having a chill time, I was having a relaxing time, I was enjoying myself with those 3 characters the most. If there's anything from this update I had fun with, it was playing as Amy, Tails, and Knuckles. I don't know why you can't switch between them whenever you want.
Thank you.
Until you get to the end of the game.
Oh my god.
But, like I wish at any point you could just be like, I want to play as Knuckles now. I want to play as Amy now. But you can't do that until you've reached the end of the campaign, where this one character lets you switch characters. You should be able to switch whenever you want.
Unfortunately, folks, this is where the DLC peaked for me. I'm not sure if you feel the same, Clement.
I do.
This is where Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, thank you for your time and service. You were the best part of this DLC. I applaud you for being worth the free download and my 10 gigabytes on the PS5. Sonic, unfortunately.
Jesus. It's like, okay, this was not advertised as hard mode.
No.
This was advertised as an extra campaign, and especially the inconsistency of like, okay, if it is hard mode, why is Tails, Knuckles, and Amy so chill and easy?
Yeah.
Why are their levels and their platforming segments so relaxing? And then you go to Sonic, and it's like, okay, kid gloves off, we're going to the hardest thing that's ever been in a Sonic game ever.
And like, it's unacceptable to me because even in the main campaign, I don't know what difficulty you played on at first, but like I found the easy, normal, and hard difficulty in the original game to be kind of negligible. Like I didn't notice that big of a difference.
No.
And like to me, I felt the hard mode was just as manageable as like the normal mode or the easy mode or whatever. It didn't feel like that, but that's just me though. And when you have such little difference in difficulty between those original modes in the main game, and then all of a sudden you just astronomically expand that to a higher difficulty than the original main game, even our hard mode, it's like, no, what are you doing? Did you not play the main game? Like, what? Like, it's like you heard the feedback from Sonic fans that the game was too easy, and you were like, okay, we're gonna make it infinitely harder, which is why I said earlier that it's important to make concise feedback. Concise! You can't just say a game is hard. Why is it hard?
There still has to be good game design here that makes you want that's hard but rewarding. Hard but like you enjoy going through it. And I think this is the hardest piece of content Sonic's had ever. Like I think about Sonic Unleashed. Sonic Unleashed had DLC for like harder stages where spikes were everywhere and you're constantly taking damage. I think those levels are easier
than
what's happening at Frontiers. Yeah.
At least it's long.
Yeah. It is what it is. And at least you know what you're getting, like when you buy those DLCs. Like Sonic 06 had a super hard mode DLC. Yes, 06 had DLC. I know, it's shocking. And at least it advertises that it's super hard mode. This thing did not advertise that this was going to be hard mode. It advertised that it was going to be an extra campaign with all your friends. So it took me by surprise how hard those towers were to climb. But then you actually get into the tower trials themselves. And holy shit, man. Like, first you get bombarded by like these 5 really tough enemies who require very specific ways of battling them with like a 3-minute or 6-minute time limit. I don't remember how long it was, but I remember I would let the time run out like my first 5 or 6 times, and then sometimes I would just outright die because they drain your rings so quickly. And when I finally cleared them, then we got to the second trial where they've got these 4 armored things that you have to kill in like 3 minutes, but you only have so much damage you can do because they limit your strength. They limit how strong Sonic could be, meaning that a casual audience can't just like max out their strength settings and clear it instantly. They have to abide by these really strict rules that make it a puzzle more than anything. It's a puzzle.
What were the developers of this thinking? I'm sorry. What were you thinking? Because if I'm someone playing on hard mode, and if I really wanted that difficulty, fine. Whatever. You can have that. But for someone, I'm thinking of kids and maybe people who don't necessarily play Sonic games too often. Like, if that audience goes in, and maybe they're not necessarily good with combat, or, you know, action games might be their weaker point, and they just want to enjoy Sonic for the story and the fun of it, what are you doing in saying, like, oh, by the way, I know you're in easy or normal mode, but we're just gonna, like, reduce your level to 1, we're gonna take away all the abilities that you learned so far, go and defeat this.
Yeah.
What? What are you thinking there? That's so ridiculous, and that's so unacceptable. I'm sorry, but that is so bad. My roommate recently got into Sonic, and she's been loving the series. She really loved the original Frontiers campaign, and so she was really excited about the story DLC. And she got to, like, the trials, and she was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. This is ridiculous, and I don't think I'm gonna play through the rest of this DLC. It sucks because this DLC was advertised as having an alternate story interpretation, so I guess I'm just not gonna be able to see this, and I'll just have to look it up on YouTube then. And I'm like, you don't want to do that to your audience, man. Like,
no. Again, this is not advertised as hard mode.
You're cutting a portion of your audience from, like, the quote-unquote true ending of sorts, and I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. But then people are making the argument, well, technically, in the older games in the classic series, like, you had to collect the Chaos Emeralds anyway to get the true ending. Like, the true ending was like 5 or 10 seconds. It changes nothing about the game at all. It's just a cute little supersonic cutscene. And, like, collecting the Chaos Emeralds are optional. Collecting the Chaos Emeralds are optional. You have to defeat the Trial Towers in order to get the ending. Tell me the difference there.
And I would argue that the Chaos Emeralds are easier to collect.
Yes.
Like, no matter what, I don't care what game you're playing, they're easier than the difficulty in this mode.
Yeah.
But it's also the inconsistency, because it's like the first 2 trials are so fucking annoying, and then you get to the third one, and it's just those dog enemies again. And I beat him so easily. I was just like, is it because I set the difficulty to easy mode? And no, I start watching people playing it on hard, and no, it's just genuinely, they took the dog enemies from the main campaign and put them back in a trial by themselves, and that was all the trial was. I'm like, well, that was so piss easy. Why wasn't the other trials like that? Why is this one so stupid easy?
Why couldn't that be the first trial?
I know. and it's a matter of like, okay, the things you have to do to get to these trials is you climb the towers, and the towers are very tough, like very specific platforming. The one thing I hated, if you broke these pink boxes, they didn't respawn. So like, you would break the boxes to homing attack chain to get to a part of the tower, and then if you fell, you go back and climb up, and the boxes are gone. So now the platforming's much harder because you have to balance on these very tiny edges, or do what I eventually did, reload your save, and then the boxes respawn, which I had to keep reloading my save every time I fell off the tower, and I shouldn't have had to do that, because there should have been checkpoint ropes. There should have been, like, you got to a point of the tower, and then a checkpoint rope dropped. You know, like the main campaign. Because in the main campaign, you also had to climb some gigantic towers just to, solve the story. And those towers had checkpoints. Yep. Those towers had these little ropes that would drop when you hit a switch that would let you go all the way to the halfway point or all the way to the 3/4 point, so that you weren't doing multiple things over and over and over and over and over again just because of one tiny misstep, because of the awkward physics or the awkward camera or the awkward things that I don't blame difficulty on, I blame poor design on.
Yeah.
And then it culminates with the worst fucking trial, which is a boss rush of all the Titan fights in the game. So you're fighting Gigantos, Wyvern, and the Knight, all in one life. You have 60 rings or 90 rings. I don't remember how much it was, but regardless, you can't pick up any more in any of those 3 boss fights. You only have a certain amount of rings, which count down when you're supersonic. So you're expected to just know how to speedrun these bosses, to know the optimal strategies to kill them really, really quickly, which, why would a normal audience know any of these strategies for beating Gigantos or Wyvern quickly? When would we know that, like, okay, parrying and blocking something at this point is going to make this cycle go by quicker? I don't know that. I fought the boss one time, and then I beat the game. You know? So it's just and also, why are the intros part of it? Why can't we just jump to the fight? Why do we have to climb the tower and go to the thing before we can, and grab the Chaos Emerald before we can fight the boss? Like, why can't you just cut to the fight itself, where it's already going to be long if I'm losing all my rings during night and I have to redo the first 2 fucking bosses all over again? It made what was the coolest, hypest shit about the original game and made it annoying and frustrating, which is like, this was so cool at first. This was one of the coolest moments of the original game, and now it's not cool at all. It's annoying.
I'm gonna be fully transparent, y'all. I did not finish the Trial Towers. I got to the second one, and I was like, you know what, Clement? I am seeing you next week. Make a save file for me. I'll beat the final boss from there. Because I didn't want to deal with it. And if that makes you say, oh, well, no, Kiro, you have a skill issue, which was a debate that I actually saw on Twitter among Sonic fans. It is not a skill issue, first of all. Because you don't know who's playing your games. You don't know what background they're coming from. You don't know what accessibility issue they may or may not have. And to me, the second boss was hurting my hands, which are already in a screwed up state because of some competitive music playing I did when I was younger. And unfortunately, those have translated into health problems for my hands, and I should probably see a doctor. But anyway, like, I can't play for long amounts of time. And Clement knows this because there were certain points in Dr. Fetus where when we were playing it, I was playing so much and my hands literally started to hurt. I was like, I think I need to take a break for a bit. Like, I do not have the time personally to spend on a level over and over and over again for health reasons. And for people to just go online and say that the reason that they're not liking the DLC is because of a skill issue, they're not good at the game. Oh my gosh, what kind of rock are you living in? Because you must be living under some sort of rock. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I beat the damn challenges, and I don't like them. I don't recommend this mode because I think it's bad. I think it's poorly designed. I think there's no thought into anything that they were doing. And I'm just going to say it, the ending that everyone was hyping me up for, like, oh man, but at least the ending's peak Sonic. The ending is peak Sonic. I'm like, it's okay. Like, I think the original ending is thematically better. And yeah, he does some Dragon Ball Z Goku shit. I know you all want Sonic to be Dragon Ball, but I mean, do you really think the final boss was that much cooler than Wyvern or the Knight? Do you really think it was doing anything that amazing that was like, whoa, my mind is blown. I've never seen this in a Super Sonic fight before. Whoa. I wasn't that impressed.
I told Clement that if it was some Dragon Ball shit, I would like pause the game and just get out of the room. And it was. It's like, I'm done. That's it.
Yeah. Also, I just felt like that fight as well was poorly designed. And you know why it was poorly designed? Because they want you to attack a certain part of the boss. But the problem was, it doesn't illustrate how you're supposed to switch targets. It doesn't illustrate how you're supposed to aim at something. No. So, like, I had to keep mashing, like, the right bumper button and the left bumper button, L1, R1, just to eventually get the target to switch so that I could attack the part that I'm actually supposed to attack. Which, again, that's badly designed. I don't care. Skill issue all you want. That is badly designed that I'm spending 5-6 minutes wailing on its health, which just keeps regenerating, and then they don't even have the fucking courtesy to be like, you know, Sonic, maybe that purple tube should be dislodged before, you know, they don't have the courtesy to tell me what I'm doing wrong, which I knew what I was doing wrong. I just couldn't fucking do it right. There was no way to just position the target reticle to aim at things I wanted it to aim at. And if there is a tutorial about that, well, guess what? That tutorial needs to pop up again during the boss fight, and it did not do it. I don't care. People playing on easy mode are still going to have an annoying time going through the boss gauntlet. They're still going to have an annoying time doing the trials. Even if on the easiest difficulty, it's not easy. It's still some of the hardest shit in Sonic. And that's ridiculous.
I know in the past we make fun of, that looks like a homing shot, Sonic, but this boss fight really needed more of, that looks like a homing shot.
Yeah. It really did. Like, playing Metal Sonic in Sonic Heroes feels so quaint now because they're explaining that, like, Thundershoot will take out those spikes. Yeah, I will. Thanks, Tails. And again, I just thought the ending was not as impactful. Also because in the original ending, the final boss would, like, monologue about all of these things it was going to do and how it feels about you and Sonic, you're minuscule, you're insignificant compared to me, blah, 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 blah. The boss doesn't talk in this alternate ending, so they don't have a cool monologue. They don't say anything interesting. The way that Sonic used the Ancients and propped up the Ancients and bolstered them to help take out the boss, because are you going to let them destroy this planet this time? Are you going to let them destroy the planet again? You need to fight for your life. You know, he's boosting the Ancients in the original ending, which I think is way more impactful. And in this one, the Ancients aren't there. They're not helping with the fight because they're being possessed by the bad guy. I think the ending was more powerful in the original. I know and quite frankly, the Ikaruga fight was more interesting of a fight.
Yeah.
I know it's not, I know it doesn't fit what the supersonic and all that stuff. I know it's out of left field, it is. But I'll admit, I had more fun with that than I did fumbling with the targeting of this new fight. And I don't care just because, Sonic crossed his arms and he did some dashy Goku shit. I don't care. I don't care. Dragon Ball's existed since the 90s. It's not that fresh. It's not that cool. I'm sorry.
If I paid like money for this, I would have been even more pissed going into this. And I guess it was free, but again, my large issues with the DLC were just like communication to the player, accessibility, consistency. And like I was saying before, this is why concise feedback is super important, because you can't just say this game needs to be more hard. You can say, however, I felt like in the main game that the platforming levels were, I don't know, too easy, etc. Maybe if you provided a challenge in this area while also not sacrificing this, then you could achieve the balance that you're looking for.
And again, I don't think it's necessarily also on the audience's fault that they went to the umpth extreme, because they're the ones playtesting this. They're the ones designing this shit. They're the ones who should know better to know that, like, this isn't fun for a casual audience. Why would you have the game be finalized in this state? Even the cyberspace levels that they added, I know a lot of people gush about them because of the tech and because a lot of it is designed around the spin dash. So, like, you'll spin dash off of a ramp and you'll go super, super fucking far, and you can land on, like, 4 or 5 different platforms that all go in different directions. And look, I agree, that makes the levels kind of interesting, but the reason I did not have as much fun with the cyberspace levels as I wanted to, and why I still prefer a game like Sonic Generations, is because the level design is not very clear with these cyberspace levels. Sometimes I would go in a chemical plant stage, I would spin dash so far that I went to a wall, and then I fell to my death, and I was like, okay, I went clearly too far. And what exactly do they want me to land on? The camera isn't positioning itself in a way. And then you get some levels that have no checkpoints at all. So when you're like 4 minutes into a Green Hill stage, and then you die, you have to go through all those previous things you've already done a million times again, and that's not fun. I wanted to have fun with the cyberspace levels. I thought there were interesting spin dash tech going on in those stages. I do think that. But it's just still not well optimized. It's still not well designed. There's still something off about it. And so, you know, I hope that we get Generations-esque level design with that spin dash system. I hope we get good camera cuts, clear indication of where you're supposed to drop and where you're supposed to land. They can do it. I know they can. I can't wait for Sonic Frontiers 2, whatever that follow-up may be. But this ain't it.
It really isn't. And
this ain't it.
And to go back to, like, Dr. Fetus for a moment, because I promised that I would circle back into this. I'm not asking for Sega and Sonic Team to reduce challenge in Sonic games, because there is clearly an audience for this, and they should keep catering to that audience. I just don't think that they should sacrifice, you know, a lot of their casual base to appeal to a hardcore audience that primarily exists online. And so what I liked about Dr. Fetus was that even when I failed, and there were levels where I died like 40 to 50 different times, they still gave me checkpoints in order to keep going through that level. It's like they were encouraging me to keep pushing through this level, but at the same time, they're upping the ante with the obstacles, and it's up to you to just trial and error and keep trying again in order to complete the level. And so you could achieve challenge and balance in that way, and I think that's what Sega and Sonic Team should be focusing on for the next game.
Yeah.
Because if we get Sonic Frontiers 2, and if it plays a lot like the DLC, I'm going to be very, very concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, to be fair, there's a little bit of concern still with another game we need to talk about. Because overall, I like this title, but it does suffer from some of the same setbacks that this Frontiers DLC has. And that game is Sonic Superstars.
Sonic, this has been the most complicated month for you. Mm-mm-mm.
I mean, it's weird. I think the main campaign of Sonic Superstars is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
I think
pretty much.
that the level design is fantastic. I think that the gimmicks... I'm so thankful that, like, this isn't just Green Hill Chemical Plant Sky Sanctuary again.
No.
This is a whole bunch of new, unique levels. Levels where you're grinding on vines. Level where you're in a sky temple. A pinball circus level that has like a Halloween aesthetic in the second act, so all of the badniks get like ghost cloths over them, which is really, really cute.
Yeah.
The levels are all unique and all interesting, and the soundtrack, it's hit and miss. It's very inconsistent, I guess is the word. Because like sometimes you get T-Lopes type music that's just bangers, like Bridge Island Act 2, Sand Sanctuary. Sand Sanctuary's fucking incredible. Lagoon City Act 2. All of that music is just like, oh, this would fit right in Sonic Mania. It is so good. I want all the music to be like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get to like a boss theme and it sounds like Sonic the Hedgehog 4.
I'm looking at Fang's theme song specifically. Like, I like how they added a musical motif from Sonic Triple Trouble into Fang's music. But I was listening to the first time, I'm like, man, this is not what my boy deserves.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. And like, I can clearly tell, I'm not trying to put anyone down when I say this, but I can clearly tell which songs in the soundtrack were composed by T-Lopes.
Yeah.
And most of my favorite songs on the soundtrack were composed by T-Lopes. So, props to you, man.
It's just weird when like he's using real instruments and then someone else is just making the same Genesis drum, like with the, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's still doing that. The music really made me feel like I was playing Sonic 4 Episode 3 sometimes. Like, not only because it was a 2D game with a 3D aesthetic, but just like, I don't know, it felt like we were playing very similar levels to like the sand. What was that one in Sonic 4 Episode 2? I know it was like a desert oil rig kind of level, but it felt very similar in that terms of aesthetic sometimes with like the egg factory with the bomb and stuff. Like great gimmicks, great stuff. I like when it's hammering the ground and it's making your characters jump up. So you're trying to like jump in time with the pounding so you can stay in the lower areas. The first time a Sonic level encourages you to be in lower areas over higher ones. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
The boss fights, I think people exaggerate a lot of the main boss fights to be far more annoying than they actually are. Because, yeah, there's a lot of waiting involved with some of these boss fights. Like Speed Jungle Act 2, there's this big iron ball that's shooting out these wires. And so, like, because it's an iron ball, you can't damage it.
No.
You just jump into it, nothing hurts it, nothing's damaging it at all. So, like, what you have to do is, it shoots these wires at you, and then the wires, if they try to go for you and they accidentally run into themselves, that's how they take damage. And I understand, because, like, if you get all the Chaos Emeralds and you have Super Sonic, you can't speed up the fight because of its iron casing. You still have to wait for the wire to damage it, or you'll still have to wait for the monkey to disappear from the back of the screen so he can go to the forefront of the screen so he can start, like, trying to attack you and stuff. Like, I understand there's a waiting period, but I also think that on repeated playthroughs and, you know, just knowing what you know about their design and the fact that you have Chaos Emerald powers in this game that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of, that there are ways to speed up these fights and make them go by a relatively 1 minute to 2 minute length that is not that bad, I feel.
For sure. I definitely feel that.
Like, I feel like the monkey fight that I mentioned, yeah, he spends a lot of his time in the background, but it only takes 3 hits to kill him. Yeah. 3. And it goes by fairly quickly as long as you take advantage of every single moment. And as soon as he jumps to the front, I can use my avatar power to send a whole bunch of clones on him and damage him that way. I use the avatar power
so much on this boss.
Yeah.
The bosses in general. That was such a good thing. Like, if I was, like, low on rings I'd be like, you know what? Breaking glass. Avatar time.
Like, these powers are way more useful than you'd think, because, like, I'd say the most useful powers are the first two Chaos Emerald powers. Like, you immediately get Avatar with the first one, and then you get Bullet with the second one, which allows you to, especially Sonic and Amy and Knuckles, to go very, very high for a short period of time. They can just sort of launch and go in any direction they want, and that includes with boss fights. So, like, when you're fighting the underwater climbing boss in Lagoon City Act 2, you can use Bullet to skyrocket through the water and hit the robot and not have to navigate the platforms and stuff. You can actually just bypass the platforms entirely and go right to the weak point and just damage them instantly. So I think there are lots of cool things with the Chaos Emerald powers, whether it's growing a vine that you can use to go super, super high and then jump off the vine. You can slow down time so that the projectiles are a lot easier to dodge. You can, there are special unique attacks. So like Sonic can get a homing attack. Knuckles can shoot a wave of energy when he punches. Tails can throw like a wrench or something. Like, there are cool abilities now tied to the Chaos Emeralds that add a wrinkle of fun to the gameplay and add a little layer of strategy to some of the boss fights in order to speed them up and make them go by a lot quicker. So I think that's interesting.
It is really interesting, and like this game had a lot of great ideas, like you said, and I think like it's really accomplished well in the main story. I was just really happy in general that I got to play as Amy again, my girl, classic Amy.
Hell yeah.
And like she has this really cool move where like if you have her hammer, you can actually, like, keep chaining and hitting enemies with it. So you can be like, boop, boop, boop.
I actually think Amy is the best character in the game.
Yeah.
Like, normally I gravitate towards Sonic. Like, in Mania, I would gravitate towards Sonic because he's got the elemental shields, he's got the drop dash, he's got all these cool things that the other characters don't. But I feel like Amy has the huge advantage not only because of her double jump, but also, yeah, she basically has the insta-shield. She has this hammer that can destroy Orbinauts and electric enemies just fine, where she doesn't have to wait for them to turn off their electricity. She doesn't have to wait for the spikes to go away because her hammer has so much reach and it goes outwards so much. It acts as a sort of insta-shield and it deals out tons of awesome damage that, yeah, Amy's the best character in Superstars. I think she's way, way more fun than the others.
Yeah. You're in the Amy Club now.
I'm going pink. I'm going pink this time.
Yes. Welcome to the Pink Club. Now you just need a channel rebrand. You're going to rebrand your entire channel pink.
Oh, God. I think the levels have a nice flow to them. I don't think they overstay their welcome. The game itself doesn't really overstay its welcome. I think some people might complain it could be longer.
Could be longer.
Because I feel some levels are 2 acts, some are 3.
Some
because
are
they
just
also have
one.
like these. You have certain levels like Lagoon City where, like, yeah, they do have the Act 1, Act 2, but they also have this 3rd act, which is specifically about one character. So, like, Lagoon City Act Amy, and you play exclusively as Amy, and then all the level and stuff is designed around her gameplay capabilities. There's a Golden Capital level that's designed specifically around Knuckles, designed specifically around him climbing and gliding places. So a lot of the platforming elements are made for that.
Or Speed Jungle Act Sonic.
Yeah. Where he gets to take on Fang. Hell yeah. Some levels have 3 acts, and then you have Sand Sanctuary, which is just 1. And Sky Temple, which is just 1. So, like, it seems like there's a lot of game because it's like, oh shit, there's like 11 or 12 worlds in this game. That's going to be like Sonic Mania. That's going to be huge. But some of those levels only have 1 act, so it doesn't feel as long. You don't spend enough time in them, I guess. But
no.
I personally I was fine with the length of the game. I feel like it's a comfortable sit.
Same here.
I feel like going from the beginning to the end is just long enough to not get exhausting. So yeah, I thought the length was fine.
Yeah, it took me about 3 to 4 hours to beat it. Like, I spent 1 hour when it released, and then I spent another hour after I got home from work. Or, I'm sorry, not an hour. Spent another 3 hours after I got home from work.
What did you think of the Chaos Emerald stages?
I like the idea of them. Like, the fifth emerald was kind of weird because that has a weird gimmick that not the other stages have.
Yeah.
I just think it could be refined a bit more.
Yeah, it always felt like I was lucky a lot of the time that I got the emerald.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes I was doing all right, but then other times I didn't. And I by the end of it, I was mostly focusing on trying to get rings because I felt like if I get more rings, I'll just stay in it longer. And so by proxy, I'll have a better chance. And that tended to work out every now and then. But I don't know. Sometimes it just felt like the Chaos Emerald would get further away from me, even though I felt like I was swinging a pretty good length at a good clip. And I don't know. It's no Mania killer, that's for sure.
No, I definitely enjoyed Mania a lot more than Superstars, but this isn't to tell you that Superstars is, like, mediocre. I had a great time with the main campaign, at least. Especially since Fang is back.
Oh, and we gotta talk about the new character.
Yeah.
We gotta talk about Trip.
Trip!
I mean, holy shit.
She's so adorable. I love her design. I love how she acts. And she's a really nice touch.
I love that I cared so much about Trip, considering that this game has no dialogue.
No.
Like, I actually think this game has a more effective storyline than Mania does, because at least in between the levels, they are telling a story about Fang has a new sidekick. The sidekick is this girl named Trip, who's wearing all this armor, and she has a helmet, and she's very shy and very nervous and very, like, awkward. And she's trying to capture Sonic and friends. You know, she's setting up traps and whatnot, but she's not very good at being a villain. And she keeps bumbling and screwing things up for Fang, who keeps getting more and more agitated at her. And you can and I love that level in Lagoon City when you're playing as Amy and you run into Trip.
Yeah, that's such a sweet moment. I love it.
I guess Trip is either afraid or injured. I don't know why we're carrying her, but Amy is carrying Trip throughout a good portion of that level. And it's just very cute that Amy saves her and tries to get her out of this dangerous situation. Like, again, no dialogue in this game, but the environmental and the cutscene storytelling, the way the characters emote and the way the characters animate and the way they do things is just so cute and so adorable. And I actually found I grew close to Trip. I wanted Trip to succeed. I wanted Trip to be happy. And she is a playable character. Eventually, you do unlock Trip, and then you can play her in the main campaign whenever you want.
Absolutely.
Trip the Sungazer. That's her full name. Trip the Sungazer. She's got Vector's homing attack from fucking... not homing attack, but Vector's jump animation from Knuckles Chaotix.
Yeah, I did notice that too.
She turns into like this big circle buzzsaw thing as opposed to just a big orb. And she can cling to walls and ceilings like she's the Spike Wisp from Sonic Colors.
You mentioned Trip and her abilities, but to segue to the sex topic, like even though Sonic Superstars is a bit on the shorter end, it does allow for like lots of replayability because now I can just play the main story as Trip again with all of her unique abilities and the way that like all the Chaos Emerald powers are unique to her in the sense of like how those animations go about.
Yeah. And again, the Gray Chaos Emerald gives them all a unique special ability that only they have.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I haven't tried co-op yet. I don't know what Sonic Superstars is like in a co-op setting. I don't know how crazy and chaotic it is when you're playing with 3 other players going through these stages. I don't know how glitchy that'll get, because we had some glitchy stuff happen when we were playing.
Oh yeah, I gotta tell this story. So, when I went to the shop, this was like literally the first hour I'm playing this game. I went to the shop, and then the game for some reason loaded me to the final area of the game. So unfortunately, because of that, I was spoiled on how many zones there were and what final area there was. And then I jumped off the platform as Amy, and then Amy's just kind of falling into a void of nothing, and the music is still playing. So luckily this game autosaves, so all I had to do was just like exit the game and then come back in. But that was just so weird. This is on PS5, by the way. Like, this wasn't on Switch. I played on PS5.
I don't like how the crushing detection is, because sometimes in the
Yeah.
final level, I would run towards a thing that was lowering, and I'm on the lowering platform. I'm on the thing that's dropping down, and because it clips with the wall weird, I would get crushed. And I don't know how that works.
Even though you're not necessarily, like, under the thing that would get you crushed.
No, I'm to the side of it.
Yeah.
Like, that
that's
doesn't
what
make
happened to me
any
too.
sense. I don't know why I was getting crushed.
It's so weird.
For the most part, I think the main campaign is perfectly fine. Like I said, I actually enjoy the boss fights. I will admit that a lot of them do need checkpoints, though, and especially when we get to the real bad ones. But for the main campaign, yes, Fang at the end of Golden Capital probably could use a few more checkpoints. It's a little too long of a slow burn of, like, you're riding this little contraption, you're dodging lava and picking up rings, and it's just like, okay, we don't need to go through this every time we die. And I still maintain, I don't think the main campaign's final boss is that difficult.
No.
I don't think he's that obnoxiously horrible, but it could use a checkpoint, you know?
For sure.
It doesn't, when you get to the second phase, that should be a checkpoint, so that when you drop back in, you're just immediately playing the second phase. It shouldn't be, you have to take on 5-6 minutes of this boss every time you die, just to get back to where you were. I agree, that's bad. But I didn't have a problem with the main campaign final boss, because it wasn't a one-hit kill galore machine. It wasn't something that was just obnoxiously annoying. I was dodging its stuff. I knew when to dodge the lasers. I knew when to... And again, your avatar powers and your bullet powers, like the Chaos Emerald powers, are way more helpful than you think they are. And I think you can literally hit the final phase like maybe 2 or 3 times, and then the avatar will take care of the rest.
Oh, yeah. That's a good strategy.
Main campaign, I liked. Main campaign, I don't love it more than Mania. I don't love it more than 3 and Knuckles.
Yeah.
It's a good Sonic game. I don't think it's an amazing Sonic game, but it's a good Sonic game.
It's a fun time. If you're just looking for a simple fun time, this will give you it.
Yeah, and I love the environmental design. As an Eggman fan, the fact that, like, the carnival and the factory and the cyberspace have all of these Eggman iconography, Eggman towers, Eggman faces, Eggman clowns and stuff, I love that shit. Like, I love the backgrounds of this game. I love pretty much half of the music of this game.
Yeah.
The T-Lopes tracks are amazing, and I think that when you're just going by T-Lopes tracks, it is a more memorable soundtrack than Mario Wonder, to be fair.
Lagoon City Act 2, specifically.
Oh,
Good.
So good.
Shit.
Good shit.
Good shit.
And, you know, I can replay the main campaign comfortably. I have no problem going back to those levels. I think they're perfectly well designed. Not the most amazing thing ever, but it's fine for what it is. But they botched it when it came to the extra content, which felt so, which was like, which, considering what we just went with Frontiers and its extra content, man, what's going on with Sonic and extra content these days?
So I'll give Trip's story this over the Frontiers DLC. There are no lives, so you can try this as many times as you want.
Yeah.
So at least you can keep trialing and erroring over and over again. And the levels are shorter in length than, like, what you had to do in Frontiers. But I'm comparing apples to oranges here. Like, what I'm trying to say is that, like, at least the parameters of the levels in Superstars, and I'm talking about before you get to the bosses, allows you to just keep trying again. So you're at least making some sort of progress.
Yeah.
But if the bosses were an issue in the main campaign, they're even more of an issue in this campaign here.
Absolutely.
Because they're longer, they were more challenging. It was quite a venture. Quite a venture.
And honestly, I only had trouble with 2 bosses leading up to the final boss. I had trouble with the Sky Temple one, mainly because that becomes very bullet hellish.
Yeah.
And because you're flying in the sky when it's happening, that can be really tricky. But again, Avatar can hit Eggman when that segment is happening, so, you know, it cuts it down really, really quickly if you know to do that. Wink, wink. And the other one I had trouble with was the dragon in the snow level,
Yeah.
the wyvern in the snow level.
Actually, the
'Cause,
two
like,
that
it
you
would
mentioned,
destroy.
the two that you mentioned are actually the two that I have the most difficulty with. So, yeah.
Because it destroys platforms, and at least in the original main campaign, you could play a character like Tails or Knuckles to float a little bit. Trip, they have a double jump, but they can't float, they can't fly. So like, the way those bombs could be placed, they could just destroy practically all the platforms, or they could hit you, which makes you fall back, which means you can't really react to any of the explosions that go off. So you just like instantly die as soon as you take contact damage, because well, I can't jump out of anything now. Fuck, I'm dead.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about Trip's campaign was that it just made me feel like a fucking idiot.
Oh. like in what sense?
In the sense of, I'm constantly running into enemies and picking up my rings, running into enemies, picking up my rings, which I know that happens in main Sonic as well. It happens to me in Mania. It happens to me in every Sonic game, but Trips especially. I felt like the final level, I wasn't dying, but I was constantly running into every enemy in that hallway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would just run into it, pick up ring, run into it, pick up ring, run into it, pick up ring. And I'm just like, I feel like such a loser.
Well, even then, I feel like they just placed more enemies.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why you were running into more.
When I go back to the main campaign and play those levels again, I don't feel that way. I feel like I can dodge everything quite effectively if I see them coming. Whereas Trips, I feel like I'm just running into shit constantly, is all. They just surprise you with more things, is all. And it's weird because it's like, as a campaign, I know it's trying to be like the Knuckles playthrough of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where it's harder, and Eggman is replaced with the Egg Robo, and there's Egg Robos constantly scattered throughout all of the levels now.
Yeah.
But I think it's way harder than what Knuckles has to go through. Like, sometimes Knuckles doesn't even have to fight a boss in his levels.
No.
Like, he'll go through Carnival Night, and Carnival Night has no boss. You just go through the level, and it's hunky-dory. But Trip, everything is amplified. Everything is much harder, and it isn't advertised as a hard mode, but I could at least accept it as a hard mode. I can get that. I do. But Jesus, that final boss.
Yeah. Mm.
What the fuck was that?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't know if this is worse, or if the Frontiers DLC is worse.
Oof.
I don't know. Because they're both levels of bad, but for different reasons.
Again, I just think the Fang fight needs checkpoints. If it had checkpoints, it wouldn't be that bad, but because it doesn't, insta-kill moves galore. Holy shit, it has pink lasers that can kill you regardless of how many rings you have. It has a cork gun that can shoot you to the forefront of the screen regardless of how many rings you have. And then it has like this last phase, when you're 6 or 7 minutes into the battle, it can like destroy the platforms you're running on. And considering you're encouraged to run a lot during this boss fight,
yeah,
I wouldn't think to stop running. I would think to keep going, and then I fall into the pit and die. But even when I got back to that part, it destroys the platforms. I know to stop this time. And then the head destroys the center platform.
Yep.
And I didn't know that was coming. And I died instantly.
Oh, no.
And I knew I had to replay 6 or 7 minutes of gameplay just to get back to that point. It is not a skill issue. It is fucking annoying. Okay?
Does Sega just assume we all live in our basements and we do nothing but play Sonic games? Because I don't got time. I don't have time to play this a boss over 6 to 7 minutes. Are you kidding me?
I don't have time to spend an hour and a half on one boss. Like, good lord. It's not even its own level. If I turn the game off and decide I want to retry Fang that I hadn't beaten him yet, I have to go through Act 2 again. Because there's no way to just jump cut to the boss. It's frustrating. Because you see a game that is perfectly fine and it's perfectly good, and then they just fuck it up with all the extra stuff. I don't get it. I eventually beat Fang, and I eventually beat Trip's story, but I didn't feel good about it. And then you unlock the last story, which is just one supersonic boss fight. And I think that was the worst supersonic fight I've ever played in a Sonic game. I think it is so heavily dependent on RNG. Like, sometimes you get lucky and Tails and Knuckles show up to give you rings. Sometimes you get super unlucky and nothing happens, and then you just lose your rings and die because they don't have a reliable way to pick up rings in that fight. And once again, it's just like they introduced mechanics. Well, how am I supposed to know I'm doing a fucking homing attack with the X button now? They have never, ever illustrated that.
Nope.
At one point, I fought the boss, and I defeated it. I delivered the final blow. That was the last hit I had to do. But I ran out of rings after I did it. So even though the dragon was blowing up and the screen was fading to white, it killed me, and I had to restart the whole fucking fight all over again. I was so mad. I was so angry because I knew I had beaten it. I knew it was over, and I was just so pissed off.
I would have counted it. Fuck that bullshit. I would have counted. I would have been like, you know what? I did it. Whatever.
And if it was just a 2-minute fight, whatever. But it's a 6 to 7 to 8 minute fight. It goes on way too long. And, you can say that the Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles final bosses are hard. And yeah, they are. They expect you to do it without taking any damage. But not only are they like 2 minutes long when you know what you're doing, fucking there's no waiting periods. There's no you know what to do,
Also, with the Sonic 3 final boss specifically, if you time everything right in the Doomsday Zone, you can get, like, well enough rings if you don't run into meteors, and that's definitely more trial and error.
Much shorter fight, much more reliable way to get rings. Like, there's an actual pattern of rings that you can run into in order to make you have a ridiculous amount of rings. This supersonic fight in Superstars, the rings are random as fuck. They just decide out of the blue whether they want to shower you in gold or whether they don't. I hated it. Hated it. Whatever supersonic fight I may have had an issue with regarding Dark Gaia or one of the Rush games or whatever, I don't care anymore. Those are 10,000 times more competent than this shit.
Mephiles.
Mephiles was fun. I actually didn't. Right. I didn't hate that fight. That was the one thing I complimented in my Sonic 06 review. But fucking, I'm just saying it now. This is the worst supersonic fight we've ever had in any of these games. That was atrocious.
Even worse than the Frontiers DLC?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
When I was rebeating it with you, I knew what to do, and I did it just fine. There was no RNG element to it. This supersonic fight in Superstars, fuck that fight. Fuck that fight. I hated
Sega
it.
Clearly has an issue with ruining things that were already fine to begin with. This is fine. No. Let's add this. No, what are you doing? Stop it! No!
Yeah, I guess Sonic Team passed the memo to RZest that, like, Sonic fans want these games to be super, super hard, so you should really make sure there are no checkpoints. I don't know, but I truly, truly hope that this is, like, contained. I hope that someone's getting the message over there that, like, this is still Sonic the Hedgehog and not Dark Souls, and that maybe we should tone down the difficulty because this is for a casual audience as well. I don't know.
Like, I mentioned it on Twitter, and I mentioned it with Clement, but as someone who is both part of the Sonic and the wrestling fandoms, the common fault that they both have is that they have very passionate fans who are very enthusiastic and are very into what they're watching or playing. And don't get me wrong, that's great. It's good to have. But the issue is that they get so into infighting with each other and arguing amongst themselves that they alienate a lot of the more casual audiences that are just as important to the series that they're consuming, that they're often ignored when it comes to constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't want Sega/Sonic Team to do going forward.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of kids that are into Sonic now. Like, the movie came out last year, and...
Sonic Prime on Netflix.
Yeah, Sonic Prime on Netflix. And so you're gonna have a lot of people, and a lot of kids especially, like, as someone who works with kids, children, teens on a daily basis, I see a lot of kids that are into Sonic more so now than I did back when I was a kid in the 2000s. There is an audience there. So you want to make sure that they're included in a lot of the media that Sonic builds out. So I guarantee you that there's a kid somewhere who picked up Superstars, or picked up Frontiers, and picked up the DLC for that because they were interested in Sonic, or because they got into Sonic because of the movies. Guarantee you.
In both of these cases, it's like, do I recommend Sonic Frontiers? Yeah, the main campaign. Do I recommend Sonic Superstars?
Yep.
Yeah, the main campaign. If you stick to the main mode, you're going to have a fine time. You're going to have a great time for either 2D classic Sonic that beckons the Genesis years, or modern Sonic that is paving the way forward and showing us what Sonic could eventually become. We got both sides of the spectrum here. But the extra content in both of these games sucks ass because it's way too hard and there's no checkpoints. Jeez. And for Christ's sake, Sonic Team, this is a game made predominantly for families and children. Tone it down a little. Tone it down. Stop catering to the fucking edgy Dragon Ball boys. Jesus Christ.
And no, don't get... If you're mad at Commenter Me for saying this, no, it's a fact. I guarantee you, there are lots of children. We were all kids once. We were all children once, you know?
And you know how I know it's fact?
How?
Because Nintendo released another banger 2D Mario game this month that followed Sonic Superstars. And Mario Wonder is one of the greatest Mario games that ever existed. I love this game. How's that for a segue?
Yes, Mario Wonder is legit a 10 out of 10 game. Nails. Remember everything that we complained about accessibility and difficulty of the Sonic games? Mario does the exact opposite. The complete opposite. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Mario Wonder, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. This is the newest 2D Mario game, and I think if there's any comfort food, if there's any reliability in gaming, it's always going to be the Mario franchise. I can always pick up a Mario game knowing that, like, this is going to be a great time. I'm going to have a fantastic time. Mario's always going to be a legend. Mario's always going to be iconic. And this game is just further proof of that. It's just another example of how great level design, creative gimmicks, cute music, like it's the total package. It's got everything you would want from a video game.
Yeah, so the story this time is that you are in the Flower Kingdom. So that's the world that you're exploring this time. And Bowser is, of course, up to his old tricks again. And he has obviously taken over the world. And your quest as Mario, or Luigi, or Peach, or Daisy, or Toadette, or Toad, or Yellow Toad, or Blue Toad more specifically, or Yoshi, or Nabbit, is to...
giant roster.
Yes, giant roster. So your quest is either one of those characters that I mentioned, is to get the royal seeds that you'll find in each world and defeat Bowser.
It's the same plot in most Mario games, but it's not about the plot. It's about the experience. It's about the crazy shit that happens during the course of the game. And like right off the bat, if you've never seen a trailer for this game, if you've been on total radio silence and have not looked up anything about Mario Wonder, it's like in the first level, you pick up a power-up that turns you into a gigantic elephant. a gigantic elephant who can absorb water in its trunk and then spray water on their enemies, as well as make the flowers bloom and make certain platforms and things appear. The main attraction of Wonder and why it's called Wonder is these magical wonder flowers. Every level has one, and every time you pick up a wonder flower, it just radically morphs something about the stage. It might turn Mario himself into a platform. It might turn him into a slime. It might turn him into a very tall, stretchy man who you have to duck in order to lower and become small again.
Yeah.
I love the second level.
Oh, yeah, the second level is amazing. It's you right there.
The game just started, and immediately you pick up the Wonder Flower, and all of a sudden, all the piranha plants that are in the stage just start singing.
And I'm like, that's all the game needed. Like, that moment right there is already better than the entirety of Superstars, entirety of DLC from Frontiers. It's so great. So amazing. It told me that I was in for something special, and I could not believe the amount of creativity in the level design, in what you're able to do in this game. Because just when I thought the game couldn't peak and couldn't get better, it just kept getting better. Like, the creativity was out of this world. I think they were developing this game for like several years. So like they had time to like create a lot of ideas for Wonder, and it obviously shows here.
Like, they have so many different bird type enemies in this game that like they've made the enemy roster quite gigantic, where like you have these orange birds that try to dive and fly towards wherever you are. You've got these blue birds that shoot out these platforms. They shoot out like these little big poles that pop out so you can use them as a platform. You got birds who will dive into the water in order to grab fish or grab you if you're swimming in the water and stuff.
Yeah.
They got roving, they're not buffalo, whatever they are. They're light blue, and they got a stampede of monsters that you have to climb on top of as they barrel through the entire level. They barrel through all of the blocks and everything.
Yeah.
Hoppos. I love the hoppos, where these big balloon hippos that they get stuck in the ground and then you bounce off them like a trampoline in order to get to higher places.
Yeah.
And like,
cute.
There's one level in the special world where you have to bounce on one hoppo with levels filled with spikes.
Yeah.
Levels filled with spikes. So the only platform you have is this hoppo. And so you hop on the hoppo.
Yes. Hopping on the hoppo.
I love just talking about this game, but you hop on the hoppo, and based on where you are in position of the hoppo, if you hop on the left of him, he'll go right. But if you hop to the right of him, he'll go back left the way he came. So it's a very tight balancing act as you are dodging spikes and trying to maintain, you're trying to keep on this hoppo. But if you go too far on the hoppo, he'll go back the way you came. And it's a fun balancing act, that level.
Absolutely. And like ideas are super, super fun. It's a colorful game too, and it's very musically based, which as a music person, I very much enjoyed. And like the way that they structure the levels is really cool. So like Mario has like a 4-star system with like the levels in Wonder. So a level that's like rated 1 star is like, it's a pretty easy enough level. Like you just go through it. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
2 stars is like, it's a little challenging, but otherwise you could still get through it. 3 stars is like, you might die 1 or twice, but otherwise this level has a bit of challenge to it. And 4 stars is like, the mechanics are pretty hard, expect to die a couple of times. Then
we get to 5 stars, which is like, hey, you want a real challenge? You came here to this is where the big boys play, huh? Look at the adjective. Play.
This is where the big boys play in Mario.
Kevin Nash, that's not an adjective.
It's a verb.
I love how many fun, crazy gimmicks there are with this game. Like 1 minute you're a slime going against like the sides of the edges and just going on the ceiling and stuff. 1 minute the perspective changes, and what was a 2D game is now an isometric game. All of a sudden you're moving Mario in every direction on the background, just trying to navigate all the enemies that way. It's so creative and so fun, and I love the badges. because they
Yes.
gave
Oh
all
my
of your
gosh.
characters these extra special abilities. So if you want the Mario 2 power jump, where like you build up energy on the ground and then you jump super high, there's a badge for that. If you want the ability to glide with your hat so that your hat gets super inflated and you just slowly glide to where you're going, there's a badge for that. My personal favorite badge was I took the spinning floaty thing, like, because this game is modeled still very much like the new Super Mario Brothers games,
sure,
where you can
yeah.
push ZR, the trigger button,
Excuse
and Mario.
I think you mean ZR.
You filthy Americans, filthy Americans. But in the new Super Mario Brothers games, you push that button and they'll spin, which keeps them in the air just a little bit extra with that spin. And I've always enjoyed that ability from those games. And there's a badge that actually lets that become a sort of double jump where you will spin, but you'll also levitate when you spin. And that was my go-to badge, because I was like, okay, if I get like a weird double jump with the spin feature, perfection. That makes the controls so amazing. And it just lets me do whatever I want, because you can still wall jump and you still climb poles and shimmy. And I love those little zip line things where like you touch this energy platform that's like orange and pointing in one direction, and then you're going super fast and you can jump onto another and drop from another, and just like, there's so many cool things happening in this game, you know?
Absolutely. And I love like how the badges are categorized too, because like there's one badge where like if you're looking for like a little less of a challenge, there's a badge where you automatically start with a super mushroom, so that when you do like start a level, you can
What?
I'm so sorry, I'm gonna have to start again.
Okay.
Because I left my TV on during C Squared, right? My TV automatically went to raw,
Okay.
and Gunther just smashed a pumpkin in front of the Miz, and the Miz is so pissed, and he looks so sad.
Amazing.
Anyway, one of the things I like about the badges in Wonder is that they're categorized into different groups. So if you're looking for less of a challenge, you can use the auto super mushroom badge, which means that you start the level with the super mushroom activated, so that you can automatically just get one of the higher tier power-ups. So you don't have to, worry about just getting a super mushroom when you're like at a smaller size. So that definitely helps out if you're doing like 3 to 4 star levels, or if you just want to start as like a higher tiered power-up in general.
Yeah.
And then there are others that are really fun too, like a lot of the super jump ones, and then there are ones that save you from pits, and then there's another one that like helps you twirl around. There's just so many of them, and you can really customize it to your own like to your liking.
And then there's the speedrun badge,
Yeah.
where like Mario turns into a runner game. He's constantly running, and when he runs off of an edge, he hovers in the air just a little bit so that you can jump out of it and get a lot of distance. I thought that was... speedrunners are going to love this game. They're going to love this game.
I can't wait for like the next GDQ.
That's going to be
gosh,
amazing.
It's gonna be so good. One of my favorite gimmicks is the jump levels, where like you have to jump to the sequence of the songs. I love that one. It's so fun.
They got these rhythm-based things, so it's like...
And it gets faster.
So like the platforms are reappearing and disappearing to the beats, and you're trying to wall jump and climb up them as the beat is happening. And again, a very creative Mario game. This is one of the most creative games in years. It has so much more personality than the new Super Mario Brothers games, which dominated the 2D scene for so long. Like the first one was on the DS in 2006, and the last one was like New Luigi U in like 2013, 2014.
You can't forget the year of Luigi. Yeah, it was in 2013.
2013. And we got Mario Maker, which was great. Let the fans do it.
And see, I feel like Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2 especially, like, I don't want to say that Nintendo, like, outright stole ideas from fans, but I think that they used some of the mechanics of Mario Maker 2 and were inspired by some of the ideas that those mechanics had to create some of the things in Wonder.
Yeah.
Like, I was reading somewhere that, like, during development, they came up with, like, over 2,000 ideas for this game.
Jesus.
And so they had to narrow it down to, like, a specific amount, and then those were implemented into the game. It was pretty wild.
It shows. It shows. Because they're always doing something different in almost every level. Yeah, this game is just, it's a bundle of joy. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It really is. Like,
Wowie,
that's the first...
zowie.
Wowie zowie. Yeah, like, that's really the word that comes into mind when I think of this game. It's just joy, happiness. Like, it's so accessible. Like, there are characters that you can play as where if you're new to platformer games or not really necessarily great at them, there are characters that you can pick where they don't, you know, take damage. Like, sure, you can't power up as them, but you don't, you know, you don't have to take damage, so you don't have to worry about losing lives, and I think that's great, you know, for someone who wants a little bit of an easier time with the game. And, like, it's not only great for, like, kids, it's great for adults, too. Like, I've been a Mario fan forever. Like, as soon as I, like, started gaming. And this was still an amazing game for me. And that's exactly what you need to do. Like, for a very casual game like Mario, someone who's been around for a very, very long time, you need a game that'll appeal to kids, but you also need one that'll appeal to adults. Like, the problem with the new Super Mario Brothers series, for me personally, was that, like, it was fun, but, like, I felt like a lot of levels were either the samey or kind of forgettable. Like, but this game with Wonder, I'm not forgetting my experience. There were a lot of great ideas here, and this is something that, like, Mario absolutely still needs to continue going down in terms of, like, the 2D formula.
Yeah. The game puts a smile on my face, like, the whole time I'm playing it. And we haven't even talked about the talking flowers yet.
I know.
Like, you're running through the level, and there's these flowers that you run by that are just like, "Hi, how you doing? Oh, I wonder if you can get back there. That Goomba seems so peaceful. I killed the Goomba. Well then." I love this one level where, like, the platform fell out from under the flower, and then he was just had this blood-curdling scream. No!
Yeah. Like, you would think in theory that, like, a flower that commentates on every single move you do is annoying because it could have easily just been a, "Oh, hey, that just happened. I'm gonna make a quip out of this." But I think, like, the flowers are they're just so wholesome, and they have such a comforting personality to Mario. Like, they never try to, like, get in your face. They're just simply commenting on, like, what Mario does. Or they have, like, a nice quip to, like, add, you know?
And they're supportive, too. So, like, when you beat one of the harder levels, when you beat one of the more challenging things, they're like, "You did a great job! Awesome!"
Like, one of the special world levels that I completed, like, at the end, all the flowers were like, "Amazing!" And that made me feel so good about completing that level.
I know.
And I have it, like, video recorded on my Switch. Because I just loved it.
It's just, I don't often associate Mario with voice acting, with lines of dialogue that you hear. And especially not in a 2D platformer, but God, they were the most charming thing about this game, and I just remember having a big smile every time they usually said something. Like, one of them comments, like, you turn into Slime Mario, and you, like, go on the wall where the flower is. And he comments on, like, "Tastes syrupy." I'm like, what the hell? That flower just sucked on my Mario. It's a bundle of joy. It's good old reliable. Mario is always going to be a reliable franchise that, no matter what, it's always going to come out with something good. Like, even the new Super Mario Brothers games, you know, they're not the best in the world, but they're still good. And they're still, like, something I'd give to my nephew to be like, "Hey, here's a Mario game." And they'd still love it. They'd still enjoy New Super Mario Brothers U or New Super Mario Brothers Wii. But Wonder is on a whole nother level. Yeah. Wonder is like, and also I just appreciate the fact that, yeah, you can play as the princess this time around. You can play as Peach. You can play as Daisy. You can play as Blue Toad, Yellow Toad, Toadette. there are so many characters so that you don't just have to play as Mario. If you want to play Luigi in a single player experience, you can be Luigi. You don't have to be player 2.
Nope.
It's a wholesome game, and it's something I want to introduce to my nephew. I want to see my nephew play Mario Wonder, and I want to play with him and do co-op, because these games are co-op after all. And it just makes me feel good. It just makes me feel good.
This is definitely like the game that I'm going to tell my coworkers who have kids who love video games to get, because I just feel like this game is so open to everyone that I feel like anyone of any age can like just enjoy it.
And I think even the hardest levels in this game, and I 100%ed it. I cleared the hardest level in the game. I think even the hardest levels in this game are nowhere near as frustrating or as unfair as some of the stuff in the Sonic content this month.
Yeah. Especially after just feeling confused about Sonic in general with the DLC and some decisions made in Superstars. Wonder was just a nice band-aid to that. It was just like, yeah. It was so good.
It's wonderful! Woohoo!
Woohoo!
And finally, we've been talking a lot. We're talking for 2 hours, but
yes,
we do got to talk about briefly Spider-Man 2. Although, full disclosure, I have not finished this game yet.
I have not either.
I haven't even gotten past the black suit arc. I just got the black suit. So we don't have a lot of experience with this game, so we can only give like a base level, entry level examination, and maybe we'll talk about it more in the next C-Squared, if you're down for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Assuming this sticks the landing, this might be my game of the year.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's either...
I fucking love Spider-Man 2. This game's amazing.
It's either this, 16, or Mario Wonder. The first Spider-Man was my game of the year in 2018.
Yeah.
So it would not surprise me at all if this game ends up being my game of the year, because I've been having a very great time with it so far. Couple of bugs aside, like, I think there's so much more content than the first game, and there's a lot more to explore. The personality is still there, the gameplay is still fun, and yeah, I've been really enjoying the first, I want to say, 6 or 7 hours that I played of this.
How many side quests have you done? Did you meet Howard or the old man character?
I don't believe I have.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it then. But all I will say is that what I appreciate about Spider-Man 2 is that even though it can go pretty bombastic with the black suit and Kraven, and there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in this game, but it also is not afraid to be like wholesome. It's not afraid to dip into the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man aspect where, you know, sometimes you're not taking out a gigantic supervillain. Sometimes you're just trying to help a woman find her grandpa.
Oh, yes, I have played it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for jotting my memory. Yeah, I did play that.
I loved that mission, even though you don't punch anybody in it. Like, you don't punch anybody in it. You don't do it. There's no enemies to fight. It's just a woman has misplaced her grandfather. She doesn't know where he is. And she asks if Spider-Man can help her find him. And Spider-Man eventually does find this old man. And they have a nice conversation in the park about his late wife and all of the experiences that have passed him by. And just, I love that Insomniac Spider-Man is willing to go there. I love that Insomniac Spider-Man is willing to take that aspect of the character, that aspect that you might find in the actual comic books, and put it into this game, whereas a Web of Shadows or the Amazing Spider-Man probably wouldn't do that, because they'd just be focused on, we gotta fight more enemies. Spider-Man 2 has a vulnerability to it and a human connection, and I love all of the moments where just like Spider-Man and his friends are at the carnival and they're playing carnival games.
That was a fun moment. I tried to do I did as many of the carnival games as they allowed me to, but that was just so cute. It kind of felt like, I don't know, I was reminded of Life is Strange in a very weird way. I don't know.
I was gonna say that!
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, you too.
There are seriously elements of this game that feel so Life is Strange.
Where it just lets the story breathe. there's a moment in the carnival portion where you could sit on the bench with MJ, and you're just sitting and talking about, oh wow, how many years have gone by, and friendship and stuff, and you could just sit there and you can look at the sights around you, and then you can just leave.
I think it's crazy that we live in the SSD era of gaming, because fast travel, holy shit, it might be the coolest fast travel I've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah.
First, you have to unlock it, which means you have to do, like, certain tasks around certain parts of New York. Like, if you clear out Central Park of its goons, if you find its collectibles, if you do all the quests associated with Central Park, at some point during the halfway mark, you'll unlock fast travel for that area. And, before in the original Spider-Man game, you'd see, like, a little mini cutscene of him hopping on the train and holding onto a train or going on into the train or whatever. In this game, it's like you highlight where you want to go, and it just zooms into that spot on the map. The map design, the map interface goes away, and you're just there, and Spider-Man's just swinging around at that spot. It's fucking crazy. That's magic.
Oh, yeah. It's really amazing. And, like, you can unlock the fast travel pretty quickly, too. Like, if you do all the side missions, or at least the quests in a certain area, it's pretty easy to rack up, like, those points. And if you do crimes, you can, get it up even faster.
Yeah. Although, the only reason I want to do fast travel at all in this game is because now New York has expanded so that you have the left island and the right island. And so you have missions in Queens and Coney Island, and you have missions in just regular old Manhattan. And I don't love traversing past that big open body of water. I don't usually like swinging with the bridge, or at least having to get with the bridge. Although you do have this wingsuit thing now. So, like, there are air currents that can propel you across the ocean if you find them, and you can kind of glide your way through there. But if I am going to use fast travel, it's usually just because I'm on the right island. I want to do something on the left island. I'm just going to fast travel to the left island.
Yeah.
But if I'm on the left island and I'm at the bottom of it and something's happening at the top of it, I will swing through that whole island just to get to the top mission because, of course, it's Spider-Man. It's a Spider-Man game. You want to swing in these kinds of games. The character's never been so fast. The character's never had so much precision with their control. It might just be me, but I feel like I have more control over the swing than I did in the previous game.
Oh, no. You're not alone. I certainly feel like there's more control over the swinging, and that just makes it more satisfying for me.
You got 2 Spider-Men this time around, so you got both Peter Parker and Miles Morales. I think Miles has a little bit of an edge just because of his certain combat abilities. He has this big shockwave move where, like, you push L3 and R3. He lets out a shockwave, and on higher skill levels, when you have all the skills, it refills your focus meter.
Yeah.
So, like, when you can just do a fucking chaos blast, and then you get your focus back, and you can have, like, 3 bars of focus. Yeah, Miles is pretty OP. Miles is pretty damn awesome. Although the symbiote suit, when you get to the symbiote, you're going to see that some of those abilities are fucking crazy too.
Yeah. And, like, when you're tackling certain crimes in the city, either Peter or Miles, depending on who you're playing as, can help you out in eliminating those enemies too.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool.
I love that. Yeah, I'm just doing random crimes, and then, the other Spider-Man's there. And then they do the finger pose, because, it's a meme. You got to acknowledge the meme. It's 2 Spider-Men,
Oh, that's the other thing. So, one of the things that I love about Spider-Man 2 is its attention to detail, because, like, I was telling Clement that I was swinging around in the city, and then J. Jonah Jameson's show comes on, and he's ranting about the Spider-Man, of course, but then he says, oh yeah, like the Spider-Man in the purple suit flying around, and I'm wearing a purple suit. So I assume that, like, that dialogue piece changes depending on what suit you have on. And that's wild.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, it was always a thing where, like, even with the original, where, like, they recorded dialogue for every single, like, open world conversation in 2 ways. There's the way where if you're not swinging around, if you're just standing around, Peter will talk very calmly, very, like he's just standing around. But if you're swinging around, then Peter's just be like, I hear you, MJ, I hear you. So it's like, they still do that, where, it could be, oh man, I gotta find the symbiote suit, or oh man, I gotta find the symbiote suit. They change it based on what exactly you're doing at any given moment, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
Stefan did a great job in the game. I want to give props to Stefan.
Man, he hid the secrets from us for a long time. Man, it's such a good job.
He played Mysterio. Good for him. Good for him. Such a break. Good Quentin Beck.
Moving on from FTCR. Good job.
Yeah. Why didn't he tell us? Oh, man.
NDAs are.
I also like that some things were hidden from the trailers, because the whole opening of this game is a big, gigantic battle against the Sandman.
Yeah.
And I've been keeping up with these trailers, at least with E3 and with the Summer Games Fest and all these things. And I never knew that Sandman was going to be in this game. So the fact that it opens with this gigantic showdown of a big, humongous Sandman who's destroying buildings. And when you defeat the Sandman, the fucking New York is covered in sand.
Yeah.
Like, I was like 2 or 3 missions into the game, and I was still swinging over parts of sand. Like, there was still sand scattered throughout New York, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how much effort it is to just design this world. And the fact that you can literally go up to the sides of buildings, and you can look in the window, and there'll be like decorations and NPCs doing things in that building. And it's just a random building. I didn't find like the Oscorp building. I just found a random building, and I could see people in the windows. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wild.
I love that all the costumes have like different styles this time around. So like, not only can you have like the classic outfit, the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, 2099 Spider-Man. There's a whole bunch of different versions of Spider-Man costume for both characters, but they also have color variations.
Yes.
So if you want the default outfit, but with, I don't know, a purple scheme or a yellow scheme or something like that, you can do that. You can have the classic outfit look kind of similar to the symbiote outfit, but not really,
Yeah.
That kind of shit is so cool, and I love the personalization, and I love that no matter what cutscene you're in, they'll be wearing the outfit that you chose to wear. And there's a lot of cool-ass Spider-Man outfits in this game.
There's so much variety in this game. It's like I've already unlocked a good number of the suits, and I don't think I've unlocked everything yet.
We still have to go through it, still have to beat the game, but so far I've been very, very into it. I like the foreboding of the symbiote suit, and I like the relationship Peter has with Harry is really good.
The way they set that up is good, and I feel like they're just gonna break my heart.
Yeah, this is Spider-Man. He can't have a happy ending.
Yeah. No.
He can't have a happy ending. I'm sorry. Like, there's that moment where Harry's taking you throughout the Emily May Foundation, and he's showing you all this cool technology, and it's like, oh, I got a particle accelerator, and we're gonna eliminate hornets to help with climate change and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, Peter, you're not gonna have this job.
No.
Something's gonna go horribly, horribly wrong.
Oh, Peter. Peter.
You and Harry are not going to be leading this thing with a happy ending. I'm sorry. But then again, maybe I'll be proven wrong. So yeah, I think we'll talk about Spider-Man some more when we do the next C-Squared.
Yeah.
But for now, I think this game is fucking fantastic. I'm loving it. And this has been a banger year for games. It's been a banger month for games. Jesus.
Yeah, I made so many game purchases in the last 2 weeks. I got Superstars, I got Wonder, and now I'm playing through Spider-Man 2. And yeah, that's definitely going to keep me occupied.
I'm supposed to be recording Final Fantasy 16 for my video.
Don't give in to temptation.
But the black suit calls to me.
Oh no.
He wants me to play.
He wants you to play.
Play with us, Spider-Man. It's question time. It's question time. This video's gone on quite long as it is, so we're just going to blow through all these questions and have some fun.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Super Michael 98 asks, I've been watching you since 2013, Clement, so happy 10 years. Oh, thank you. Anyway, could you make a retrospective on Castlevania, and what do you think of the Netflix series? I could. I don't know if I will, but the Netflix series is pretty good. Pretty good.
Yes, I did see Castlevania. I need to catch up on the next season, but I liked what I saw so far. And it's pretty neat as a casual fan who has only played, like, a limited amount of Castlevania. We played a bit of Super Castlevania 4 at your place. But otherwise, it's neat.
Yeah.
It's alright. I don't know if I can make a video out of it because I don't really have any video editing skills, so I can't really make a retrospective, but you have my opinion on the TV show. So yeah.
But thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Bowen Terra asks, have you shown Caro Metal Gear Solid 1 yet? If so, what did she think?
Well, yes, we actually did play through Metal Gear Solid 1. You can catch my thoughts on the previous C-Squared episode, which Clement will, I don't know if you're going to embed this into this clip right now. But we did talk about
I can tell you exactly what episode it is.
Perfect.
It's C-Squared number 11, titled Brother. The brother is meant to be liquid, but it's also because we watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, and we commented on that. So, brother. I thought the title was kind of appropriate. I don't know.
Yes.
And remember, guys, I have a playlist of C-Squared that is on my front page, and if you click through it, you can see all the videos we've done. This is C-Squared number 14, after all. We've talked about a lot of things, from No More Heroes 3, Monster Hunter Stories 2, Final Fantasy VIII, the new Pokemon Snap, the Mortal Kombat movie, Blockbuster. We talked about Final Fantasy XIV, Deltarune, ActRaiser. We talked about Pokemon Shining Diamond and something Pearl. I don't know what the other one was.
Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. We talked about Pokemon Arceus.
The Sonic 2 movie. We talked about Better Call Saul. We've talked about CM Punk's crazy-ass journey. We were at Too Many Games in C-Squared number 12. There's photos of it and everything. David Hayter was there. He interrupted Some Call Me Johnny's panel. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and again, all these videos are like 2 hours long. So if you're bored, there's like 13 C-Squared episodes before this one. Check them out.
Yes.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Mr. Spaghetti asks, do you regret uploading any of your old videos, not from a production standpoint, but content, namely ones like Drunk Super Meat Boy? Follow-up question for a friend, definitely not me. What would you say to a person considering doing a Drunk Super Meat Boy playthrough for the fun of it? Again, not for me, for a friend.
First of all, as I mentioned before, I am not a video content creator. I have never uploaded a video, but I would not do a Drunk Super Meat Boy playthrough, as much as I laughed at it the first time around when this boy did it. If I could give one piece of advice, do not do it. No. Don't do it.
No.
Especially in 2023, when a lot of things are online now, and things can be easily linked, I don't know, back to, like, your profile, and your work professions, and things like that. I don't know. It's better to be safe than sorry, but that's just me.
As for content I regret, mostly it just comes down to production quality. It just mostly comes down to the microphone not being good enough, audio not being good enough, and anything from like 2012 below, I say certain words that I would not say today because the world was a different place in 2009, you know. Yeah. And otherwise, no real major regrets. There are things about like, oh, I wouldn't have said this in Final Fantasy 12, or I wouldn't have said this in this video, but whatever. It's built me up as what I am. It's given me the audience I have. Otherwise, I'm no regrets. No regrets.
No.
Thank you for the question. Digital Mars asks, what do you guys think of the Clone High revival?
We loved it.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it a lot.
I was shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we might need to do a segment on the next C-Squared about this, but I genuinely, there were a few episodes in there that felt exactly like classic Clone High.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
episode 3 and 4 especially, I was like, Jesus, this is so Clone High, it hurts. I loved this episode. It's crazy to me that this show has come back. I was just super satisfied. Its kind of humor is exactly what I loved about the original show. And yeah, it is a shame that Gandhi's not a part of it anymore, but I like the new characters. I like the situations everyone found themselves in. It's still wacky and it's still really, really funny. It's probably not as good as season 1, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I think the Clone High reboot was a planned segment for an earlier C-Squared episode, actually, but I think it had to be cut to time. I could have sworn it was on the docket at some point, though, so we probably
we had too many topics.
Yeah, so we probably should add that in somewhere. But I can tell you, at least right now, that I enjoyed it, especially as someone who watched Clone High for the first time last year. I felt like the episodes kind of just kept the sense of the original show alive, and so the humor was about what I expected it to be. And there were, like, certain, like, gags that just made me laugh out loud.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Carrie Renee Rose asks, Aloha, Clement and Caro. Happy to see you two wonderful people again. First is my obvious question. Hopefully you both are doing well. I'm doing pretty good.
I'm doing fine.
As for my real question, do you two watch anime in any capacity? If so, which one stood out? Anyways, as always, love the two of you together here at C-Squared and will always have my support. I watched anime mostly in the 90s. Otherwise, I don't have a Crunchyroll account, and anything that would be something that I'd watch would have to be on Netflix or something. I just never really grew up with lots of manga shops or anime DVDs in my area, so I was never really into anime that much. I like anime just fine, but it's just never been a big part of my life.
But also, getting anime back then, like, around your age, like, when you were in high school, was ridiculous, because you had to pay, like, $50 to $60 for, like, a DVD that would maybe have, like, 3 to 4 episodes. And it'd be even higher if you were buying from, like, certain studios.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for me, I can give you the names of a couple of anime that I watched this year that are actually some of my favorite shows of the year. So one of them is Oshinoko, which is, like, this wild, like, anime about, like, the pop idol industry. I can't really go into spoilers, but you would need to watch, like, the first pilot episode and then just go all the way through it. I actually want to take Clement through that anime at some point, because it's
alrighty
awesome. There are not a lot of anime nowadays where I can point and say, this is absolutely amazing, but Oshinoko is one of them. And then, another one that came out pretty recently is, My Happy Marriage. So that's, like, it's a pretty sad anime, but it's also pretty sweet and wholesome at some points, but it's pretty relatable to me in certain aspects. And yeah, if you like romantic stories with dark twists, I also recommend that anime to you. And then, another anime that I've been watching, that hasn't come out recently is Blue Lock. It's a soccer anime, which has a really interesting premise. Like, it's all about, like, recruiting these high school soccer players to play for Japan's national soccer team. But the twist is that if you're eliminated from this competition, you can never play, like, competitively ever again.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's pretty high stakes. So I've been going through that, and I've been having fun with it. So, yeah.
If you can't beat Emerald Hill Zone, you don't get to play any Sonic game ever again.
Pretty much.
Shit. Well, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Connor M. asks, hey there, hope you and Caro are doing fine. I have a question. I played Sonic Frontiers, and on some level, I think the game is worse than Sonic Forces. What are your thoughts on the game? As always, I enjoy your C-Squared and excellent content you put out. Well, we basically just went over it in this video. We love Frontiers. The extra content sucks, but we love the main content.
Yes.
So.
Pretty straightforward. Thanks for your question.
Gilly Elfson asks, what do you think of the Ace Attorney series?
I love it. I love the original trilogy. I have not played Apollo Justice, and I still need to play 5 and 6. But Nintendo, or at least Capcom, is re-releasing 4, 5, and 6 onto modern platforms very soon. So I'll probably pick that up when it releases. And yeah.
Yeah, I love it as well. The only one I didn't like was 4, which was Apollo Justice's introduction. It's necessary to play. I recommend people play it so that they can get more enjoyment out of 5 and 6. But yeah, I love that series. My favorite's probably still the original, but the second one would be a close second.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
say
you.
I think the third was my favorite.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Devin Hofarth asks, I don't know if you've answered this already, but with Persona 3 Remake coming out, who is best girl from 3, 4, and 5, and who is best girl overall? Oh, and just FYI, my name is pronounced Hofarth in Santa's, as in Santa's laugh with a farf at the end. Yes. I think we definitely did cover this earlier. I'm always going to be Chie, best girl, and Karo's Fuka, right?
Yep.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yusef asks, hey Clement, happy to see you again. I'm not sure if you play a lot of Metroidvanias, but I was curious if you heard about Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, and Bunny Must Die. They're great games, and the latter one even has some time stop mechanics a la Sakuyuya Izayoi. I've never heard of any of this shit. I'm sorry. But, and in case that doesn't count as much of a question, may I ask something on my mind lately? Do you have a particular preference for Classic over Mega Man X? It's something that has clicked with me recently upon replays and noticed myself far more attracted to Classic's intricate level design and music as well. The vibes of Classic just provoke a greater sense of warmth and coziness for me, and that's why I probably prefer it. It plus the straightforward gameplay and the interesting use of weapons. Any hoots, have a happy day, you two. Greetings again.
That's a good question. I would say, at its peak, comparing the two, I would say the X games. On a consistent basis, I would go with Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I prefer about Classic over X is really that consistency.
Yes.
Because, like, X's highs are really good.
Yes.
Like, X is the greatest Mega Man game I've ever played. I think Mega Man X is a perfect game. Mega Man X3, X5, X6, X7, they're not close to perfect games at all. I think they're very flawed and I don't like going back to them too much.
Yeah.
Like, I usually go back to X1, X4, X2, X8 a lot, but everything else I could take or leave. Classic, I love 9, I love 10, I love 11, I love 8, I love 7, you know?
Yeah.
It's just so much more consistent, and I genuinely prefer the soundtracks of those games more, just because they're 8-bit, 16-bit, whatever bit, amazingness. And Classic is always going to be more consistent and therefore more fun for me.
Yeah.
As for Metroidvanias, it's not my go-to genre, but I have dabbled with a few. I still have to go and play a whole bunch, though.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Styler asks, what's your favorite and least favorite Pokemon game?
Ooh. My favorite is Crystal. I know. Kind of a boring answer, but I love Gen 2. It's my favorite. Crystal is just so easy to go back to. There's post-game content too. You can explore Kanto, which is, always a win. Least favorite is probably gonna be X and Y.
I will share your favorite. I also agree that Gen 2 was just hit different. Like that soundtrack, the fact that you could go to the previous world from the previous game, I just thought it was so fucking cool. It was also the first time they introduced breeding and the day and night cycle, like real time day and night cycle. So whenever you were playing was when the time of day was reflected. And I thought that was so freaking cool for the Game Boy Color. I thought that was so interesting. Least favorite though, I would not say X and Y because I disliked Sword and Shield more than X and Y.
That's a fair answer. Yeah.
I think Sword and Shield probably be my least favorite. I just didn't really grab me. I wasn't really in love with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be our answers.
Yep.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Maxim Rush asks, hey Clement, I discovered your channel when I was 8 years old back in 2011. In fact, I learned the P word from your Mega Man 2 LP. Oh god. What one is that?
Oh.
You made me think, wow, this guy is so cool. I want to do what he does. Now I'm a YouTuber myself, so yeah, you inspired someone. Just know that. Regardless, are you aware of the unused theme songs for the Shadow the Hedgehog game, Broken by Sins of a Divine Mother, and Who I Am by Magnify? Also, do you listen to Dragon Force? They're a heavy metal band that incorporates video game influenced sounds and sometimes sing about video games. Yeah, I've been aware of the Shadow music, but it's always been in the back of my mind because it's not in the game itself. And I don't listen to Dragon Force, no. Do you, Carol?
Well, the only reason I know about Dragon Force is because they have Through the Fire and Flames and Guitar Hero 3, and that was like a big thing back then.
Oh, right!
Yeah,
my God!
They're that band.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the greatest song in Guitar Hero 3.
But I listened to some of their discography, and they're actually pretty good. Like, they have some good songs. I need to forward you to them sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check out the rest, but I'm definitely familiar with Through the Fire and Flames. Like that's the ultimate Guitar Hero 3 song. That's that song that if you can beat that on expert, you deserve all the pussy. Is that the P word? Is that the P word you said I introduced you to? I hope not. I hope not.
Oh God. Did you beat that game on expert? Because I never, no, I could not. No.
I can't even beat it on hard.
No.
It's normal only.
No. The only person that I know who's done it is my little brother.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But otherwise, no, I don't know anybody's beating it on expert.
Well, thank you for the question. And finally, our last question is from Victor Glenn. Hello, C Squared. Hope all is splendid. Since it is the spooky season, I'll ask a spooky question. Ooh. Have either of you had any paranormal or spooky anecdotal stories? Also, what are your Halloween costumes this year? Love ya.
Well, I can tell you something recently that was kind of freaky. So, I was actually downstairs in my living room watching SmackDown. And I was alone for the weekend because a roommate was out of town. And the dishwasher door just opened by itself. And it never opens by itself. So I was freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I was kind of just tiptoeing towards the kitchen, making sure that there wasn't anything there or someone didn't break into the house. But it was just so freaky. So I kicked the dishwasher door in and made sure it was locked. But otherwise, paranormal experiences, not really. No, not coming to mind.
Yeah, I don't have too much experience with that. The only thing I felt like I saw someone and I didn't, and I always wondered about that. Because I was walking down this highway to go home, and I was putting some trash in the receptacle. And as I turned left to put things in the trash, I moved my head to the left where I came from, and I saw someone standing near the Welcome to Town sign. And I'm like, okay, I thought there's a bench in front of the trash. I figured someone would sit at the bench and not at the sign. But there is a place to sit. There's a little flower pot thing. So it's you can sit at the sign. I just wasn't expecting it. But this person wasn't sitting there. He was standing there. So, and keep in mind, it's 9 p.m. It's totally dark. I can only see the person because of the lights. And then I just thought nothing of it. I started walking for a minute, and then I turned back just to see if anyone was walking behind me. And I look at the sign, and there's just nobody there. And I'm I didn't see anyone going down the other side of the sidewalk or towards my side of the sidewalk. So I don't know where they went. And I was just they could have gone into the woods, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know if that's so much paranormal as just a creepy guy who stood at the sign, but that's something I think about all the time. Also, I'm sorry, I've been so bombarded with making videos, and I'm such a shut-in hermit that I don't have a Halloween costume this year.
I mean, I went to a Halloween party last weekend, and I was a ringmaster, so that was fun. I had my own little top hat. I
think when I settle down, I will probably focus more on Halloween, especially if I have a kid.
Absolutely.
If I have a kid, I'll probably focus more on trying to get Halloween costumes every single year. But as it is, I'm a hermit. I'm in my room playing games, recording games, making these videos, watching TV. Halloween's the time where I hand out candy,
Yeah.
People come up, and I'm just in my normal clothes, and I'll hand off candy. But otherwise, I don't get into the festive spirit. I guess I could just dress up as one thing every single year, but
yeah.
I guess I should do that.
Aww.
But anywho, thank you for the questions, everybody.
Thank you.
This video was jam-packed. We're done. Good Lord.
We did it.
Yeah, October was busy, and we'll probably come back with maybe Clone High reboot and Spider-Man 2.
And I did buy Street Fighter recently.
Oh yeah, you did. So I'm probably going to talk about Mario RPG, and being Mario, I know it's going to be good old reliable. I'm sure I'm going to love that game, because it's Mario. They never let me down.
Yeah.
I didn't play Sticker Star. They never let me down.
And I will probably pick up Mario RPG as well. I try to pick up a video game before going home for Thanksgiving every year, just to have something to play while I'm down at home with the folks, and it looks like Mario RPG is the one game that's coming out around that time, so yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to try and hopefully get this video out by Halloween. If it's November 1st, I apologize. It takes a lot of effort to edit 2-hour plus commentaries, and God, I'm rushing. But thank you so much for listening. As always, we'll be back next month with another C Squared. And yeah, you guys are the best. You're the best.
You're the absolute best, and thanks for listening. And now check your candy for things that strangers might put in them. Or don't, it's okay.
I may have put a razor blade in there.
You're gonna get sued now.
It was a prank, bro!
Gosh.
But yeah, I am the Great Clement.
And I am Caro. Thanks for listening, and have a good night, or day, or whatever time of the day you're watching this in.
Toodles.
Bye.